I'm going to go ahead and call the November 16th, 2017 Caroline County Board of Supervisors meeting to order. Just before we begin, just present tonight we have Mr. Floyd Thomas from the Mattaponi District, we have Mr. Clay Forehand from the Madison District, we have Mr. Jeff Seeley from the Bowling Green District, we have Mr. Reggie Underwood from the Reedy Church District, we have Mrs. Nancy Long from the Port Royal District, and I'm Jeff Black representing the Western Caroline District. At this time, if we could stand for the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, grant us the wisdom and the direction for which the county and the citizens in the county need to look to move forward. Look down on all of those that serve overseas and that are protecting us in situations beyond some of our wildest expectations. And look down upon law enforcement and fire and rescue in these difficult times during the holidays when catastrophe strikes and loved ones have to suffer, and what's left is fire and rescue and law enforcement to take care of all of those needs. In your name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we are now at the point where we're ready for opening board comments. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I do have a couple. As you know, I attended Congressman Whitman's Broadband Summit at the end of October, October 30th. This was pretty much a discussion on how to bring broadband to rural localities. He asked all of the stakeholders questions. I asked two questions that I thought were worthwhile. One is, would it be possible to extend the E-rate from school to school to school to students' houses, which would cover a lot more? Congressman Whitman was amenable to that, as was Secretary G, the FCC chairman, who was there. And I also asked the Secretary of Technology, Karen Jackson, if it was possible to get a state contract for satellite companies so that folks could purchase on that, and it would make the access to internet a little better because it was more affordable, and she said she would work on that. I've got to follow up with her. And on December 7th, I guess Mrs. Long and I will once again be at the VDOT 301-207 meeting in King George, and I'm on record again as saying that I think the Route 301 corridor should be looked at more than 207 going to 95, because most people will go down 301. So it's probably going to create an issue in the southern part of the county. And the last thing is, during Election Day, as you know, the polling place that I represent is the high school, and I got a tremendous amount of comments from voters who said the high school building, the renovations looked great, they were very proud of it, they were very happy. And I mentioned that to Dr. Parker when I saw him Monday at the 4th annual Veterans Day from Caroline Middle School. So that was a great event, and I just wanted to mention those things. That was it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Forehand.
I have a few items. This past weekend we celebrated Veterans Day. I took my family to the Quantico Marine Corps Museum. I had a wonderful time, and my children will learn to appreciate such the history of the armed services as much as I do. I'm hopeful. Also want to recognize and make everyone aware that 22 veterans a day commit suicide. So that is an ongoing issue within the country and on my heart, and hopefully on everyone's heart. Hopefully we can find a solution for that moving forward. I too was provided positive feedback regarding the Madison Elementary and the high school. The handful of folks that mentioned it said it looked very good. We're very pleased and thought that it was presented a very good image of the county. Also, Mr. Black and I met with constituents in Lake Caroline and conducted an information meeting at a town hall regarding the Aqua Virginia rate increase. We had about 125 people present. A lot of information was shared. A lot of feedback was given. This is the very early stages of that, but it was a good turnout, and many of the folks seem very motivated to do what they can to reduce their rates as much as possible. Tuesday this week, I met with the board for the annual meeting of Ladysmith Village, provide them an update, and the new developer, which is Walton, they've been present for a year. They provided that neighborhood kind of an update on what they plan for it. They don't have any major plans, but they were willing to communicate at that time. So not a whole lot of growth. I think they anticipated 8 new homes in that neighborhood over the course of the next year. So for our purposes, that's a fairly small number. And that's about it for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Seeley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I'd like to say that we had the Fall Festival in Bowling Green on the 21st of October. We had a great day and a great crowd. I think it went extremely well. Next, I'd just like to draw everybody's attention to the new windows in this room. The window sills are fixed. It's been repainted, and I didn't even realize those were the old shades. I will say that they have done a fabulous job in taking care of these windows, and I think we will see great savings from that. But I would like to tell them I appreciate the new paint that they put up, and I even see they touched up the blue border, which I think is exceptional. I also attended the St. James Baptist Church 150th anniversary this last Saturday night at their banquet, and presented them with the board resolution. They were extremely grateful for the resolution, and it was a wonderful event. And last, Veterans Day in Bowling Green the annual event was, I think, fairly well attended for no advertising. People just come because they know it's going to happen. They had 3 speakers, one of which was Sarah Gibson from the middle school, to talk about Veterans Day, and she did a fabulous job, as long as with the Navy nurse that was there, or the Army nurse that was there. And another woman who read a letter from Armistice Day, just before Armistice Day, that I thought was interesting. So it was a really great event, and again, the 38th parallel event. I know they called it the 4th. I think it's probably actually the 5th. But they did have the general from South Korea, who actually did a really great job of talking about South Korea, North Korea, and what the United States means to them. So again, thanks for everybody that attended, and look forward to seeing you folks at other events in the county. And
Jeff,
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Can you give Mr. Whiteman a little shout out, because he was one of the instrumental ones in that?
Yeah, Kevin Whiteman was instrumental, and that 38th parallel sign is phenomenal when people see it. I don't think they realize the work and the material that it's made out of, but that is a showpiece along with the garden that I know that he helps to maintain. So thanks, Mr. Whiteman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Underwood.
I only have one comment, Mr. Chairman. I talked to Marlene Jolas, who's the executive director for the State Fair, and she was, taken aback by some of the comments that were written through the Caroline Progress. I don't know if you guys read the article, and then of course her response. I think the State Fair, and Marlene in particular, has done an outstanding job since coming to the fair and being a good partner. We had many concerns regarding fireworks and other things that some of the neighbors were concerned with, and they've been an outstanding business partner and do wonderful things, not just the State Fair, for the county. So I want to publicly state that this board, I'm speaking on behalf of the board, but certainly it's in my district, we certainly support the State Fair in all of their efforts to make the county a better place, and a better place for businesses as well as visitors. So I wanted to say that public. I told Marlene I would say that, and I was just a little disappointed in the article, and I really appreciated her professionalism in her response. That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood. Mrs. Long?
I went to the state fair and I had a good time. I thought it was very nice and that it was put together well, and I liked the repositioning of some of the events. I also want to thank the board for allowing me to attend the VACO conference this past Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Met a lot of people, learned a few things. It was tiring, but it was also enjoyable, if that makes sense. But I do appreciate being able to go, and I think you'll find that Mr. Black probably has the same feeling on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just have a few, want to kind of piggyback off what Mr. Forehand had said. We actually held two kind of meetings, Mr. Forehand. I would say one was in Lake Caroline, and then the other one was actually a town hall meeting a little bit later in regards to the rate case by Aqua. I think it was covered well in the newspaper. We had about 125, rough estimate about 125 people, subtracting staff that were present, and I think Mrs. Long for showing up to that. I think the sentiment around the room was, people are concerned about their rates, and I think that was a common theme. I also want to thank the board for the VACO conference. I mean, every year we go up to that. I've been the 2 years, and you get a chance. One of the best things about that is networking. I mean, they have the workshops and so forth, but networking with other supervisors, you find out you have similar issues and so forth with county to county, so a lot of the issues are very similar that we've faced. I did attend. I do want to thank Major Mosier and Mr. Nutter for hosting the Chasing the Dragon event in Landor yesterday, and it was kind of piggybacked off. They gave me an opportunity to speak last night a little bit at the opening. One of the best sessions that I went to at the VACO conference was that opioid epidemic crisis, it's really coming, and it's kind of showed the biology of it and how it's just not easy for these people who get hooked on it to get off, and the expenses that it's starting to mount on law enforcement and agencies that try to help these people is growing. So that was an eye-opening kind of session to go to. And then last but not least, the Veterans Day, where there was a couple of Veterans Day events in Lake Landor that I was able to attend. And they had a meal, the Community Activities Committee inside Lake Landor had a meal for the veterans, which is a really neat event. We had probably about 20 or 25 veterans come out. It was neat to kind of sit there and kind of talk to them about their stories. So I want to thank Lake Landor for putting that on. And that's all I have. We will now move to presentations, amendments to the agenda. Do we have any amendments to the agenda?
I would like to add one thing, maybe 18B or A, regarding the cleanup of the exits. So that would be Mr. Schiebel.
You want to add it under...
You'd be on the hook for that one.
Informational calendar items, is what you want to put it under that, or do you want to put it before that?
I'm sorry, let's go with 17B or, 17.
17B. And we will call it information on exit. All right.
Kind of an update on the plan moving forward for those efforts.
Okay. Is there any other amendments to? Are there any other amendments to the agenda?
Motion to approve agenda as amended, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The first presentation we have tonight is from Mr. Donald K. Tolson, President and CEO of the Rappahannock Goodwill Industries.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. It may say on your agenda that I am Joanne Murchison, but I am not. I am Donnie Tolson, and as the Chairman said, President and CEO of Rappahannock Goodwill Industries. You have a long agenda. I won't impose upon it unduly. I have a video I wish to share with you that I think will describe the essence of goodwill far better than I can. Of course, I have no idea how to make that happen. So in the meantime, I will say that it takes a great deal of strong passion, a fair amount of courage, and from time to time, an exceedingly thick hide for you folks to do what you do, and you do it well, and Rappahannock Goodwill is in your debt. Now, if magic can occur, I'll have just a few words after this plays.
I have worked for Rappahannock Goodwill Industries since July 1st of 2015, and I actually work in Culpeper at the Job Health Center. I'm the follow-up specialist. And so when people complete the active phase of the program, I follow them for what we call 4 quarters after exit, to see how they're doing, to see if they're working, to see how their adjustment to work is going. It's really fulfilling because I remember what it's like to look for work and to have to go through that adjustment of going back to work. It was a morning like every other morning of my life, except I felt exceptionally tired and decided to go back and lay down. And when I woke up again, I had a horrible headache. I realized that something was terribly wrong. And what would later be found out was that I was suffering a brain aneurysm. It was a brain aneurysm that would need surgery. There was no other option to save my life. I suffered 2 strokes. After the surgery, my family found me to basically be in the condition of a small child. And they were not going to be able to take me home. And I was moved from there into rehab, where they could care for me and help me begin to regain the function I had lost. I was very confused. I had lost a lot of my short-term memory. I had long-term memory of things like from law school. I was an attorney. I still remembered the law, but I didn't remember my cases. I made an attempt to go back to work, but that didn't really work out. I learned some more about the mission of Rappahannock Goodwill Industries, helping people overcome barriers to employment. Getting the call that I got the job was overwhelming. I had gotten so used to rejection and feeling like a failure that it was unbelievable to have success and to be accepted and to be wanted. I felt like a whole person again. When I walk into the Culpeper Job Health Center, I am a valued member of a team. I don't wear anything on my shoulder that says, and by the way, she has a disability, treat her differently. That's what makes me know that RGI was the place I was meant to be.
Maitre Bean is a person of great dignity, great humility, great courage. She knows where her true north is, and she has pursued it, and she's very close to getting there.
Sometimes, the victory that you're looking for doesn't come overnight. And sometimes it doesn't look like the picture you painted for yourself. But I have something that is meaningful for me and rewarding for me and gives my life meaning because I didn't give up the day before my miracle came. And that's what I encourage people is don't give up one day short of your miracle.
Now, Maitre Bean was our 2016 Achiever of the Year.
I have
Here we go
worked
again.
for Rappahannock Goodwill Industries since July 1st of 2015. And I actually
That is a compelling story, but we only need to hear it once. Thank you. Maitre was our 2016 Achiever of the Year, and she will be joined this year by 1,700 other people who, through their skin in the game and a little help from Goodwill, will overcome barriers to get a new lease on their economic life and get a job. And in your packet, your electronic packet, you have an infographic that looks something like this. And it will tell you, and I'm proud to say that 27 of your residents are our employees. We helped 97 people with our various services last year, and 40 of them we helped get a job. I'm going to tell you a very brief quote from our founder, who was Methodist minister Edgar Helms, and this was well over a century ago. He said, "Friends of goodwill, be dissatisfied with your work until every handicapped and unfortunate person in your community has an opportunity to achieve to their fullest usefulness and enjoy a maximum of abundant living." And I can tell you, I've been 2 years on the job, and by the way, a name you well know, Kathy Beard, has served on our board of directors for a long time and was chairman, and the chairman that hired me, so I'm very fond of her. Maybe that can go in the minutes someplace. But as I look at this, I'm not satisfied. I am dissatisfied, and in part of our strategic plan, we will be seeking to make a much greater impact in Caroline County, following the model we've used elsewhere in the city, in Stafford, in Spotsylvania, out in Culpeper, where Amitri hails from. We will, sometime in the next 5 years, attempt to establish an economic beachhead here in Caroline County. That would be a store, and once it is sustainable, then we will bring services to the county, such as we currently operate 9 job help centers throughout our territory, and that would be our next step. So I ask nothing of you other than to receive, hopefully, us warmly in the future when we come back and ask your advice and the advice of citizens of your fair county on how we can accomplish and serve your citizens better. And I thank you for your time and wish you a very good meeting. And if there are any questions, be glad to answer them. And if not, again, I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. We have appointments. Ms. Long, are you ready with yours?
Yes.
Go for it.
I'd like to appoint Mrs. Robin Burke to the Economic Development Authority.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Motion and second. Any other discussion on the motion? Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I am not ready with mine yet, so can you just put mine on the December one? The Recreation Advisory Committee school representatives. I think we had some school representatives in our packet.
Mr. Chairman, I'd motion that we take Dr. Parker's recommendation
Right.
and submit the name of Kim Wilson for appointment.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, now we are to number 3, which is the consent agenda. Does anyone want to pull anything that is on the consent agenda?
I'd like to pull item C.
All right, so we're going to pull item C.
You pull F and G.
Is that item G?
F
F and G, okay. Okay, is there any other items? So,
Mr. Chairman, motion to approve consent agenda items A, B, D, E, H, and I.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor say... I was the pump-out systems.
Each district has pump-out letters based on the 5-year Chesapeake Bay baseline.
Yeah, I don't see anywhere which one's next. All one.
And who was first? RBA.
Okay, so we're all set. So, motion to approve. We have that motion already. Did we get a second on the consent? We did. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, item number C, Mr. Thomas.
Yes, this is regarding the transfer of the broadband lease from MetroCast to their new owner, I guess Atlantic Broadband. According to state regulations, bless you, this approval becomes automatic if we don't do anything after 120 days.
Right.
But I would like just to send a message to them and have staff go back and say the board would like you to very strongly consider adding the channel that I'm sure Mr. Cully wanted, a high definition county access channel. So we really, hopefully this won't broadcast before he gets back there, but we really have no position of negotiation other than to say, we're going to make you wait a little bit longer before we approve this if you won't provide a community access channel.
We can do that. We already asked them and they said no.
That's why I'm asking you to go back again and say the board's not happy with that answer.
The reason I asked is because I found on Comcast now, there are local government access channels up in the high-def space. And our channel is broadcasting up there. But because it originates in Bowling Green and leaves here and goes to Maryland and then ties into Comcast, it'll never be high-def if I can't get high-def on the MetroCast, Atlantic, whatever. And that's why I broached that with Ben, and Ben did ask. And I don't mind, we certainly would love to ask again, but it did have a reason. It was because it would get it in the Comcast side in high-def, and we have the equipment. I mean, we're recording in high-def. The equipment I have, computer-based, is high-def. But the little box and all the stuff that's owned by MetroCast is all standard def, and so I'm stuck there and have to produce everything in standard def.
My only point is when we go back to them and say the board wasn't happy and would like you to reconsider, we can delay until the 120th day, which will basically cause them some heartburn. So if we could just pull that one from the consent agenda, I'd appreciate it.
Is that it, Mr. Thomas? Okay. F was Mr. Forehand. F and G, I think you had pulled.
Can we do G first?
Yes, sir.
I wanted to thank you for getting the issues worked out with Bowling Green regarding that truck. I know there was initially some heartache. Some didn't feel that they were included well enough, and from what I understand, you came in and you resolved those feelings, and so thank you.
Yes, sir.
Regarding the reserve finance engine,
Yep.
First question, are we still looking for a used commercial, a used custom cab, or are we opening up thoughts to a commercial?
We've looked at commercial as well.
Okay.
Yep. All I'm really looking for is a truck that will fit in Port Royal, which is our smallest station, commercial or custom, either one.
Okay. And do you know length?
We're at 32 feet, I believe.
Okay.
9 feet 6 inches in height, which is the limiting factor.
Okay. Because when I saw what we were willing to put forth, or what we're proposing to put
Sure.
forth, from what I know and what I can gather, if we put $50K more in, we can buy a new commercial double cab chassis and have no issues for 20
If you can
years.
point me in that direction, I will certainly research that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
But you're not opposed to a commercial chassis?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
And
But
we have some in our system.
But we do have constraints as far as space goes. So.
Right.
Okay, that was,
One other question while we're there. I thought we were going to raise the roof trusses on the Port Royal station to be able to get a truck higher statured in.
Right. We didn't raise the roof. We did raise part of the trusses, but we cut a space in those so that the garage door opener would go above the door. So we are still limited at the height of the header on the door, 9 feet 6 inches. We can't raise the front of the building up any higher, but the garage door opener itself was hanging below the garage door, so that would have been somewhere around 8 feet total height. So by moving that garage door opener above the door itself, we gained that additional height.
Okay, thank you.
Southeast Apparatus has had a conversation through a family member.
I'll be more than happy to talk to you
We'll
after.
talk about it later.
Yes,
Just,
sir. Yes, sir.
You know, it just didn't come out of the blue. But thank you. Actually, I got no problem with the request. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion. We approve F and G with the caveat that we might come back with,
You want to do both of them or just the reserve and then talk about the squad?
no, all of,
Okay.
it was simply a thank you for working out the issue for
Yes,
the
sir.
squad. So I wanted
Appreciate
you to hear it from me with everybody, but I'd like to make a motion to approve F and G as they are.
Second?
Is there any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, well, we are through the consent, right? We covered consent. Did we? Do we need a vote? No, he said he didn't want
He just pulled it, and we're going, and we know what to do, and we'll put it back on right before the end or whatever.
Can we,
Could we do closed session in this amount of time?
well, can we do the stream sweepers, I think are they here? They are here. Okay, can we do 8 and then go to the closed session? You guys
Sure.
want? All right, so the number 8 on the, is further discussion of the stream sweepers funding request.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, if you recall, at the October 17th board meeting, there was a presentation by Stream Sweepers regarding a proposed project to train 4 to 6 young adults to clean a 13-mile stretch of the Mattaponi River in Caroline County in the summer of 2018. And the total cost of that proposed project is a little over $30,000, well, almost $31,000, $30,874. At the request of Chairman Black, staff submitted a grant application to the Chesapeake Bay Restoration Fund on behalf of Stream Sweepers to fund this river cleanup project. There are no matching funds required to submit the application, but it is my understanding that the fund typically doesn't fund 100% of the project. Generally, the award is somewhere between $5,000 to $7,000 in that range. So as a result of that, the possibility of the county contributing up to $10,000 toward the project to fill in the gaps was discussed at the last meeting. It's my understanding that Stream Sweepers has obtained a $5,000 contribution from Luckstone and does also plan to approach the river, the owners of property that abut the river about funding a contribution as well. And so you're at the point now where they're asking the county to consider supplementing $10,000 to, in the event that the grant funds are not awarded in full. Deb Manzari's here from Stream Sweepers to fill in any details that I left out.
Ma'am, would you like to come down? Good evening.
Questions in general?
I do have some questions.
Yeah, obviously, Mr. Seeley. Mr. Seeley.
Good evening. I don't know if you're aware how protective most of those property owners are along the Mattaponi River between 605 and 207. I guess I just have a little bit of a concern, having seen people have issues through there, having students cleaning the river and having to probably get out and get on the bank. Can we talk a little bit about how you'll do this or how that'll take place?
Sure. So initially what we do is take a look at the tax parcel data along the river. We send out a mailing to every landowner along the river detailing what it is that we are doing. We let them know that it's an employment program. These folks are trained, that we carry workers' comp, liability insurance, and that they're supervised. and that they're employees. Then, after they've had a chance to receive those letters, we make contacts to anybody that we feel would have a property that would be feasible for us to get access or egress. Usually what will happen is that we'll get one or two people that might be willing to host a small gathering, to call their neighbors in, and we can then make a presentation in the homes of someone on the river, and that has worked very well for us to get a very detailed description of how we do the work. Once we are on the river, we only will go someplace where we have been given access. We are very respectful of property rights. The only time that I could think that we would ever be on someone's property without having had that is if an emergency were to occur. We always look for access and egress every 1 to 2 miles because we do need that for emergency services should something happen. So we are very aware of property owners' rights. We respect them, and we do need access, though, every 1 to 2 miles. So we have not had a problem in the 4 rivers that we have covered. We've been in the Rapidan, the Robinson, the Hughes, and the Rappahannock. We've been able to cover 140 miles of river with property owners cooperating with us.
Are you cutting large trees out of the water when you do this as well?
We have not in the past. There has been some concern, and I actually stopped at the wildlife management area on my way over here this evening, and I see that you guys have a lot of trees across the river. We usually take a small saw with us if there are branches or things. We portage a lot to get around those obstacles, but every river is different, and the needs of every river are different, so that's something that we would do in our scoping phase after we go along the river and determine what the logistics plans are and what is needed.
There are some sizable trees across the river
Yep.
in some very inopportune places.
Yep.
With probably, I'd be interested to see what cooperation you get, because in the past it's been difficult to get anybody to cooperate along that stretch of the river, because it's been, in the past maybe more than now, fairly abused by people who float, get out, pull boats around, stop, and landowners were very irritated with what was taking place. I can't say as I blame them.
Right.
And in parts of the river, you can only get out on one side. The other side, the bank's too high. So
We're familiar with those kinds of situations.
I'm sure you are. I'm just ensuring, because what we don't want is, 5 or 6 landowners here telling us, we funded somebody to trespass, because that's essentially what we'll end up hearing at some point. Assuming all the funds fall into place, how long before you would know, or if the funds are going to take time, how long would you know about who would cooperate and who wouldn't?
Well, in the proposal of the timeline that we had, we were hoping to spend January, February, and March, and April doing landowner outreach. That should be enough time to cover 13 miles.
So you'll start that even if we don't know if we're going to get the grant?
We have some funds allocated from LUC, so it is put in there as a multi-year program in phases if it needs to be.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else?
I notice on here it says you're going to do local youth hires.
Yes.
Local meaning Caroline or
Yes.
local meaning regional?
Caroline.
Just wanted to verify
Yep.
that. And secondly, if the grant does not come through, is that why it's a multi-year project? You'll reapply to get the second half of it? All right, so we put in 10,000, we're not, and you only get 5 from Chesapeake Bay, which you should get more. And you probably will, but you wouldn't need us to come up with the additional balance. You would just wait and reapply again next year, or we would?
Or continue fundraising through other means.
Okay. All right, great, thank you.
One thing I don't think we got, and I'd asked Mr. Collins, I believe, I think, at the last meeting, is I'd asked for the video that had kind of shown what this project does and so forth, and we never got that. At least I don't think anyone did. I've seen that video a couple of times. I know he showed it to the Rappahannock River Basin Commission. I think that's a video that, obviously we don't have 30 minutes to watch a video here, but I think that's a video that needs to be put and given to the county so people can understand the program. I mean, I think that you guys had professional production. I mean, that was done very, very well.
Yes.
And the other thing, too, that was mentioned in the video that I didn't see in the proposal, that I know you guys have done in other localities, is you actually helped localities with GIS stuff, as far as river mapping and stuff. And can you talk to us about that? Because that was a big thing that a lot of localities were really saying, hey, look, with all the stormwater management and stuff coming out now, and having a detailed map on the river would actually be hugely beneficial to a county.
So the way we use the GIS information is to do an ecological assessment. So all the staff is trained to do that. We're looking at a USDA protocol to look at buffer, bank, canopy, bed, erosion, bank height, geometry, and those kinds of characteristics of the river. That is all coded into a GPS unit and tied back to the actual location where the assessment is made. We're also looking at invasive species and macroinvertebrate identification. So we collect all of that data, and it can be displayed on Google Earth. And what it will do is give you an idea where there are areas that might need additional restoration. Maybe there are areas that severe erosion is taking place. It'll give you ideas about land use changes that might need to occur to sustain and restore the river.
Thank you. Mr. Nunnally, could you? Could you kind of talk to us a little bit about how you could use the information that she's talking about and how the county could use this information? Because I think that's important too.
Well, probably the first thing that comes to mind is if we identify any pollution sources. Say, for instance, we, in doing this work, they discover some straight pipe septic systems or a failing septic, or something like livestock in the stream, or a severe erosion problem. All those things then could be put back into some other program effort to help reduce those pollution sources or to fix those problems.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone who have any other discussion? Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we grant $10,000 to stream sweepers as proposed.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion on the motion?
Question now. This is going to actually take place before July 1st, right, of next year?
The program would begin right away.
Right away. But
And the young adults would be hired to begin work in June.
In June?
And it might carry through to the middle of July, depending on weather. We can't work every day of the week, so depending on when we start the training and get on the water, it might be June through July.
I was just asking that for our fiscal year planning purposes, because we take this money now or use some of it for next year and plan about it. The other thing is we'll have these young students will be part, I guess we're going to reinstitute the summer jobs program, and this will be part of that.
I don't know if that was part of the summer jobs program. Is usually, I believe, something different. Parks and with Mr. Sheetal. Yeah.
Is it? I mean, that's how I thought it would be. In addition to some folks that are with Mr. Howard's program could then go to this program.
Yeah, that's her.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I said reinstitute, because I won't say we, I'll say you. But you cut the summer jobs program.
I didn't, I'm saying.
I'm not in the weed, yeah,
Right.
but you don't have to be in the weed either. But
Mr. Chair, my only concern, I think this is a great program. But, again, my concern is we've cut funding for our recreation program, cut funding for the senior citizens gala, which didn't take place. I just think we ought to have the same courtesies for our own programs as well as any new program. I think this is wonderful. I don't have any issue, but I think we need to make sure that the scale is always balanced, and I don't see balance, and that concerns me. We had a good summer recreation program where we're hiring kids right here in our community to work, and we basically disbanded that. So now we say we're going to support this program, which again, I think is a good cause. I think a lot of good can come from it. But I'm saying don't look at other programs with rose-colored lenses and look at other ones very clearly. And it's clear that we have some differences here, and that concerns me. And I also want to say that. I support the program. I think you do great work. But it concerns me when we're not measuring, using the same metric to measure each program or add new ones. That's my comment.
I have a motion and is there a second? The motion is, yeah. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Nay.
Motion carries 5-1. Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you. We look forward to getting that video, by the way.
I will send 2 video links.
Okay.
They're both available.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Would you? Yeah, tell me board number 11. That's where I was going to go. All right. I was going to go to number 11. Okay. How about, do we want to cover number 10? Number 10.
Make the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we accept the changes as proposed to the Caroline County Facilities Rental Policy, Section 3.
agenda item number 10, I'll second it.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. All right, so we're not going to do number 11. Can we go to the closed sessions? Number, or do we just want to keep on going on? All right, let's go to
Get it away while we're fresh.
yeah. Let's go to the closed sessions.
Well, we're fresh, then we're going to be in 2 hours. We got to make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that this board convene in closed meeting pertinent to, first, the acquisition of real estate, property, and contract exceptions of Section 2.2-3711A3 and 29 of the Code of Virginia to discuss a potential acquisition to the county's water system where discussion in open meeting would adversely affect the county's bargaining position or negotiating strategy. And second, the consultation with legal counsel and briefing by staff under exception Section 2.2-3711A7 of the Code of Virginia to discuss specific legal matters related to changes in zoning law.
I have a second motion and I have a second. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are now in closed session. Yes. Yes, I'm going to, all right. Exactly. I need a motion to come out of closed session.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
I have a second.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Caroline County Board of Supervisors certify that to the best of each board member's knowledge, that only the public business matters lawfully accepted from the open meeting requirement by Virginia law were discussed in closed meeting to which the certification applies, and that only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed session were heard, discussed, or considered by the board.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Mr. Thomas, you so certify that we'll sit in closed session, stays in closed session.
I so certify, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Forehand.
Yes, Mr.
That's,
Forehand.
I
Thank
so
you.
certify.
Mr. Seeley.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I so certify.
Mr. Underwood.
I so certify.
Mrs. Long.
I so certify.
And I so certify as well. All right, we are now to the public comment period. We're sorry that the closed session took a little bit longer than we anticipated. This is a time for anyone to get up and speak regarding any matter that is not a public hearing tonight. So we have, on our agenda, we have 4 public hearings. If you are here to speak about the public hearing, this is not the time to speak on the public hearing. Just a reminder that each resident of the county or each resident or anyone who would like to speak has 3 minutes to speak. So at this time, anyone who would like to speak on any matter that is not a public hearing may come forward.
Hi.
You can just state your name and voting
I'm
district.
Angus Muir. I live at Prospect Hill, Port Royal District. I would like to say a few words about the sand and gravel spec and right up near our house. I oppose this spec vehemently. Natural sand and gravel deposits along the river play an important environmental and drainage function. It's not necessary, and it's actually harmful to the ecology of the region to remove sand and gravel. Now, having said that, I continue to have serious concerns about the need for additional sand and gravel operations within the RP district. No market demand or very little, and sufficient sand and gravel pits already approved will provide continuous supply of product for decades, probably. Well, and that brings up the subject that I know someone has talked to me about, et cetera, and that's hayfield. I think hayfield is the elephant in the closet. That can be mined at any time, now, later, but it's going to happen. And that's going to be a big deal with a whole lot of trucks on 17 in Caroline County. Also in Caroline, there are 5 houses on the National Register of Historic Places along Route 17. Prospect Hill is one of them. It sits, the property, 50 acres of our property sits right next to the proposed spec, right next to, and our property is in permanent easement with the Virginia Outdoors Foundation. So we have that, and then a suspected spec sand and gravel right next to it. What do we want the county to look like in 10, 20, 30 years? I support delaying the board vote for the purpose of the conduct of additional investigation regarding the impacts/benefits of the proposed sand and gravel operation. I believe that with additional study, all board members will agree that there is no tangible benefit to the county by approving the Fox Spring Farm special exception, and that the harm to the county and its residents owing to such an operation is very significant. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on any issue?
Good evening. My name is Randy Corbin, and you all, I'll ask you to excuse me. I'm battling a cough, so I've come prepared. I live at 3459 Fredericksburg Turnpike in the Port Royal District. I've been here 45 years. My husband's family's been here for hundreds of years. We choose to live here because of the historic and tranquil setting. And we travel the Route 17 corridor often to visit family and friends. Years ago, we worked with then Supervisor Calvin Taylor on zoning to protect this beautiful road. And we much appreciate the thoughtful decision that you all, the Board of Supervisors, made to approve the agricultural preservation, I think is the zoning, with a resource-sensitive overlay. However, since then, there have been so many requests for special exceptions to that zoning that sometimes I wonder what it is we're protecting. My husband and I have opposed each of the requests to mine sand and gravel, and we agree with all of the arguments that were presented at your meeting last month in opposition to the approval of yet another mining operation on the Fulks property. I'm not going to repeat all of those, but I would like to add a few things that I didn't hear mentioned, and I haven't really heard at all of the other hearings as well. We're concerned about the increased traffic on Route 17 because it was not designed some 50-some years ago or more for heavy trucks carrying heavy loads of sand and gravel. We just went down 17 to vote a week or so ago, and there are virtually no shoulders. If someone is passing a car and coming at you in your lane, or if someone swerves into your lane, there's nowhere to pull off. It's just not designed for the traffic that a mining operation puts on the road. We're also concerned about the noise and the airborne pollution that will directly affect the immediate neighbors of the Fulks property, such as Dr. Muir. They will be battling that 6 days a week for up to 20 years. I just don't think that's fair to our residents who have moved here because they want to protect the historic nature of our neighborhood. They love it here, and we shouldn't be putting these kind of operations right next to them. Our concern is for fairness. When the first request for an exception was made, I expressed my fear to Calvin Taylor that if we opened the door to one mining operation, then that would just open the door to many, many more. He assured me that wouldn't happen.
Ma'am, could you wrap it up? We're getting close to the 3-minute mark.
Okay. Well, at any rate, it seemed to me last month when I was listening to you all speak that at least one of you felt that because a similar operation had been approved, that you should approve this one as well. I just don't think that's true, and it's not what we were led to believe. So I'd like to respectfully request that you honor your Caroline County constituents' opposition to the mining, the recommendation of the Planning Commission, the position of the supervisor in our Port Royal district, and the existing zoning, and not grant another exception. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Barbara Muir, Port Royal District. At a past Board of Supervisors meeting, it was suggested that the gravel mine was quiet and clean for the environment. Please visit Prospect Hill, and you will hear the constant background noise of the actual mining trucks and hear the constant din of the gravel trucks entering and leaving the site. And you will see and begin to appreciate the daily need to remove gravel dust by washing, wiping, dusting, buildings, porches, outdoor furniture. Add to that the number of gravel trucks driving over the posted speed limit on Route 17, a road too narrow, hilly, and dangerous for such truck traffic. Considering noise, gravel dust, and rough traffic, one readily understands the negative impacts of living near a gravel operation. Just today, our family car failed to pass inspection because of a gravel ding to the windshield. We have placed more windshields over the years than I could possibly remember. By virtue of its age, our home is on the Virginia Historic Landmark and the National Register of Historic Places. We frequently open Prospect Hill routes through historic homes along the Tidewater Trail, Caroline County. The proposed mine abuts our property that has been put in permanent easement with the Virginia Outdoor Foundation. It also abuts a permanent stream, Snow Creek. Again, come for a visit to Prospect Hill and you will see how geographically it would be near impossible to build a berm to obscure the gravel site in question from view of State Route 611. And as the leaves begin to fall, that view gets more prominent. Very recently, 2 buses from the George Washington Foundation brought their trustees, both local and out of state, to tour Prospect Hill and 2 other historic homes in Caroline County. Sadly, I heard as many comments about the ugly gravel operation in Spotsylvania County as I heard any positive comments about what we all had done to open our homes and gardens. Therefore, I strongly oppose, yet again, another special exemption request to extend aggregates mining operation in Caroline County. Thank you.
Thank you. Right at 3 minutes. Good job.
Good evening. My name is John Castles. I'm the owner of Santee Farm, which is adjacent to Prospect Hill in the Fort Royal District. I'm here also to voice concerns regarding my opposition of the special exemption permit for the Fox Hill sand and gravel extraction. Santee is also on the National Register and on the Virginia National Landmark. I'm the 3rd generation to own Santee, and our family has done a lot and sacrificed a lot to keep it in its historic integrity over those years. So there's a lot of things that have been mentioned here previously, obviously, that I agree with, and voice 3 things that I'd like to highlight in regards to my opposition. One is obviously the historic, the impact of the historic nature of the property. And that's, the Route 17 and Rappahannock River corridor are one of the finest areas in the state, in my opinion. Areas that have grand homes that date back hundreds of years that I think as an individual property owner, we certainly have a responsibility to maintain. And as I would like to think that the county has used that as a responsibility as well. One of our true treasures in the state. My second point is regarding the environmental impact. And I know there are studies done on these sand and gravel extraction sites and potentially what they can or cannot do. Obviously, the Rappahannock River Valley is a rich area for that commodity, and certainly attractive to pull sand and gravel out of it. But I have to believe that there's got to be an impact in terms of what that operation will do on the Rappahannock River. Clearly, Snow Creek, which runs through our property, is immediately adjacent to this operation is being proposed. And I would have to think that both the impact on Snow Creek, which flows directly into the Rappahannock, as well as runoff from directly to the Rappahannock would have an impact. And a lot of organizations like Friends of the Rappahannock have done great things to try to preserve that great river, and I would like not to see us do anything that may hinder that. And then lastly, third point is the economic impact. Certainly I can understand, wouldn't want to sacrifice either of my previous 2 points, the historic value and environmental potential impacts for an economic reason, but there could be that, certainly for the county perspective. But from my view, and kind of going through the staff report from June, and potential jobs and potential supply revenue, and obviously the commodity itself, I'd be interested to determine whether or not
Mr. Castles, could you go ahead and wrap it up, please? We're at the 3-minute mark.
Certainly. So I'd be interested to see whether that benefits the county directly and to the level of return on investment that we would hope.
Lastly, in summation, as I looked at the report, or the staff report, I looked at the standards for the special exemption pursuant to the articles, and certainly some of those can be subjective in terms of decreasing land value and some of those things that the report says it does not. But I think that's a meta perspective. If you live next to it and if you own the property, I think you would agree that there is an impact to value and potentially the environmental pieces as laid out within the spec standards. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to bring this issue down. Teresa Satterwhite from the Western Carolina District. I have a question and would like to express my opinion on some county expenditures. My question is for the board, the entire board. Why are all Caroline County constituents responsible to pay for an ongoing issue with the gated community's water issue? I believe the county has already paid fully for 2 court fees. One request was turned down, and now again a 4th request. Aqua does seem to have the monopoly and will no doubt ask for increases regularly. Why is this not the Property Owners Association's responsibility to deal with this issue? The people who live outside of the communities should not be fully responsible to pay for these very costly court fees. The money could be used better for schools and teachers, which the county surely needs. This is beneficial to all constituents. Are we going to pay with county funds every time Aqua increases their rates? There are many of our constituents that have no idea how this money is being spent. There should be more public information on these issues. The elected Board of Supervisor members should be sure all or most of their constituents be better informed on how they handle the issues affecting the county money. The county constituents deserve this from their elected officials. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Donna Creasy, and I live on the heritage side of Lake Landor, and this is timely in view of your comments. We moved to Lake Landor in 2006, enjoying the quiet tranquility out there. I've worked in Prince William, and I found out I was built for comfort, not speed. We have been astounded, though, that our water bills have gone from being $39 a month when we first moved there to over $100 a month in 2010, when we decided we needed to really seriously curb our water use. We don't water the lawn, we don't water the garden, we use low flush toilets, we use a front-loading washing machine and a dishwasher for everything we can. We take the car to a car wash, the dogs to a groomer. We've done everything we can to save water. I even collect cold water while we're waiting for the shower water to get hot and use that to water plants. We can afford that. We're not rich, but it does pain us to see family after family leaving our community because they can't afford their $200 and $300 water bills. They have children. They have teenagers. They use a lot. Their demand on water is a lot more than ours. This latest increase includes a request for the WISC for an infrastructure service charge that can bypass the State Corporation Commission's approval of up to 10%. I don't understand how that's fair to any of us. It's one thing to fund infrastructure projects that benefit us, but for something in another area, that's absurd. I have been unable to reconcile the data from this chart. Mr. Black, is this from you all, or is this from Aqua, Virginia?
That chart that we gave out at the meeting is from the county.
I can't reconcile this with our bills because according to this, we should be paying about $50 a month because the first 4,000 gallons or 5,000 gallons are subsumed in the base charge. That's not correct. We only use 1,800 gallons of water a month now, and it is just not right for us to be paying close to $100 a month in water bills. Our frustration and consumer anger are compounded by several factors. Aqua Virginia is a monopoly with no competition in our community and is using that privileged position to squeeze us mercilessly. We have no recourse. We're not allowed to construct private wells, septic tanks. And it doesn't do us any good to try to reduce our water usage any further, as we're already using less than the minimal usage. We are a family of 2 senior citizens using minimal amounts of water. And now they're asking for a more incredible rate increase. Sometimes I think this is a psychological ploy to demand the ridiculous and then compromise for the merely absurd. I don't understand how this is allowed under state laws governing public utilities under monopolistic
Mrs. Creasy,
conditions. Yes.
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up.
Okay. I can ask my husband to finish.
No, he can speak on a different.
Pardon?
He can speak on his own if he wishes.
Okay.
Mrs. Creasy, he'll have to come up
Oh,
at a
do
different
I
time.
have a minute more?
No, we're going to have to wrap it up. It's
Okay.
already at the 3 minutes. Thank you. Mrs. Creasy, I'll take him at a different time. He can speak on his own if he would like.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
I cannot be as eloquent as my wife. To continue what she was saying, if Aqua Virginia does not reverse its policy of squeezing its subscribers and bring rates back in line with other public providers, we will recommend to our elected representatives and the Public Utility Commissions that they direct that the following steps be taken. 1, that Aqua Virginia be required to base its rates in line with other service providers, documenting the actual cost of providing our water and the amount we are charged. Or 2, that the properties of Aqua Virginia be condemned under public domain and that control and operation of the water sewerage service be taken over by Caroline County. Or 3, that the residents of Lakeland or Heritage be granted a license to dig our own wells and septic tanks to get out from under the abuses of the predatory company. We are not lawyers to know the legal entanglements of such a process, and perhaps that is a good thing. If I were, it might dull and compromise our moral outrage at what is taking place. People are hurting, much worse than we are. People are losing their homes or leaving because they cannot afford exorbitant water rates of $300 and $400 and even more. What can they do about it? If a thug with a gun held them up, they would call the police. But what do they do if a corporation holds them up? They call their government, their elected representatives who have accepted their tax money in return for protecting them from legal abuse. We sincerely hope you will take this complaint seriously and the complaints of all the other desperate people in this community. And amend the proposed rate increase. I'll yield the rest of my time back to my wife.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Creasy. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Well, good evening. My name is William Evans. I'm a Western Carolina District. First of all, thank you for your comments. And that's actually one of the reasons why I'm here, is to kind of talk about the constituents and what they should know and look for support from other supervisors other than just Western Carolina. It was a very informative town hall that Mr. Black hosted. It was great to see other supervisors attend. I know that he's prepared a presentation which lays out a lot of facts. I was actually very impressed. A couple of the facts that really stood out to me that really affect Caroline County as a whole, and not just Lake Landor, and that is the property value. The property values are decreased by 2%. That's a $200,000 decrease in revenue for the county. This is a county problem. If there's a 3% WIS charge, that's $150,000, okay, from the residents, okay, that they have to pay Aqua. Okay, it goes outside the county. That's money outside the county. And that's the number I'd really like you to think about. How much revenue does Aqua actually bring to Caroline County? Their headquarters isn't here, okay? Now, it'd be a different story if it was, okay, but it's not. Okay, they're not bringing revenue. And then he asks the story, is this the same thing over and over again? The continuing saga. Why? What's going to happen 3, 4 years from now? We're going to go through the same thing again. Every 2 years. Every 2 years. They come back, is it going to be the same story? And that's why I think we need to address it now. This is the story. And when you look at that, I think that we can do something about that. I could tell you about the affordability of some of the residents. I could tell you about the competitive cost, okay, to other counties. Mr. Black has already provided that information. I could tell you about the water quality. I could tell you that there's no hydrants, okay, on the Aqua system because of the way it was built and when it was built. But what I'd like to do is tell you a few other stories. And this is kind of interesting, and this really affects the other districts, okay, within Caroline County. It has to do with Lake Landor's donations to the high school. They actually made the public, the POA made a $3,000 donation a couple of years ago to the school band to buy uniforms. They gave a donation, okay, to Caroline County Sheriff's Office when a deputy was injured in an accident. That was from the POA. We didn't ask what district he was from. We didn't ask that. Okay, we support Cops for Kids. We have the polar bear plunge. Again, donations. We don't ask which district that child is in. And the one that really got me was just recently. They put up an angel tree in our office, in our administration office, and Caroline County Services. They put 25 ornaments on the tree, and people take these, and then they sponsor these children with gifts. There's no district identification on those. They brought 25. They were gone. We called back Caroline County Services. They brought 25 more. They were gone. They brought back 22 more. That's all they had. Landor supported Caroline County as a whole. Those ornaments, okay, were really kind of a telling story of what Landor does.
I get you to wrap it up, please.
Yes. In closing, I think what the Landor residents are asking for your help, and this is the story, and what I'd like you to do is kind of lay the foundation for the final chapter, and just let our SEC know that it really needs to end here. Okay, we can lay a final chapter and let them know that this kind of tyranny is not welcome in Caroline County. So, one final thing I want to point out is that we did bring $25,000, okay, from Lake Landor POA, but that is contingent upon the board support. I'm asking that you don't leave that on the table. Our residents of our POA are giving $25,000 to fight this legal fund.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on any matter? Once again, I'll ask, is there anyone else who would like to speak on any matter? Hearing no one come forward, I'm going to close the public comment time. We will be, for those of you that are here for the Aqua Virginia, we'll be taking that up a little bit later on. We have to go through the public hearing. We have 4 public hearings to go through first. All right, the first public hearing is number 4, is a proposed amendment of Chapter 103, Article 17 of the Code of Caroline County, Incentives for a Technology Zone. Mr. Wilson?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The change that we're proposing for the ordinance is to omit reference to specific incentives in the technology zone and empowering the board to make its own decisions as to incentives per any business recruitment. Very simple.
Yes. I have one question for you before we begin.
Yes, sir.
Under the part that says qualifying businesses, it says existing businesses located in the technology zone are not qualified businesses. Can you expound on that just a little bit?
Assume that we have a technology business in the community. This keeps them from coming back to us and saying, by the way, we are a technology zone. In a technology zone, we are a technology business. We'd like a tax break, and we've been here for 10 years. This keeps it from opening the door on existing businesses to this technology zone ordinance is, as we...
I'm just going to play devil's advocate for a second,
Sure.
though. If I've been in Caroline County and I've been loyal and I've been paying my taxes in
Yes.
Caroline for 10 years and I qualify for this, I guess my question is, why are we saying for a new business to come in, we're going to incentivize a new business, but the business that's, I mean, am I wrong on this? We're going to incentivize a new business, but the business that's already here, we're not going to, I mean,
Well, if they-
they're not, I have a problem with that. I guess that's my concern is, how do you say to a business that's been around for 10 years that we're going to help bring in competition and we're going to incentivize the competition even though you've been loyal to the county for 10 years?
Well, I would address it a couple ways. First, I'd ask the board if they want to open up their revenue stream to be decreased by every business that's in the county that may perceive themselves to be a technology company. And the other might be, simply put, that the reason we have incentives for new businesses is so that we share the cost of expenses in the county with new businesses. They bring us revenue that helps keeps taxes down for existing businesses as well.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions before I open the public comment?
No questions regarding this, just a peripheral question regarding a technology zone. Henrico, in pursuits of their recent landing of a large data center, lowered their computer equipment. Is that something you think we should pursue in hopes of enticing someone up 95?
It's
think rhetorical. You don't have to give me an answer now. Just think about it.
Certainly, I think any kind of incentive inducement should be considered. There's going to be, I think the issue is scale. If you have an investment which is not particularly large, if you were to decrease your personal property tax as they have by 87%, I'm not entirely sure what value you get out of that recruitment, especially if you use all your resources, available resources, to make it possible. Now, if it's a very large investment, maybe that makes some sense. So there could be a sliding scale. There's a lot of different ways to address that.
Anyone have any questions before I open the public hearing? I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing on the proposed amendment of Chapter 3, Article 17 of the Code of Caroline County Incentives for Technology Zones. Is there anyone? Oh, yes. We're open. Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this issue? Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this issue? There's no one else who would like to speak regarding this issue. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Board members, how would we like to move on this? Proceed.
I'll make a motion that we approve it as written.
A motion and a second. Is there any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, next up, we have a text amendment 05-2017 to amend the zoning ordinance of Caroline County sign regulations by amending Section 6 and repealing Section 7. I'm sorry. Very good.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm actually going to address the next two public hearings together since both of the text amendments are related to the same set of sign regulations. I think you could probably have a single public hearing with just a separate vote on the different regulations. The board will remember some months back there was some discussion about signage concerns to some of the other properties outside of the Ladysmith Commons or the Ladysmith Crossing development, and trying to ensure that other business and industrial zone properties could benefit in the same way that those regulations were developed. The board will remember we looked at a number of other localities, and at the end of the day, we actually came back to the Ladysmith Crossing sign package as the standard to look at for modifying the sign regulations for the rest of the county to the business and industrial zoning districts, look at our industrial parks and other shopping centers. We gave you a draft set of regulations several months ago, which you forwarded to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission looked at those regulations, took their time to integrate those regulations, ensure consistency between those regulations and the other B1 and M1 regulations. And the package you have before you tonight reflects the recommendations of the Planning Commission, which basically built upon the package that you forwarded to them and retains those modifications that we discussed previously with the board and that you referred to them, and finished the job of incorporating the rest of the B1, M1, and other planned development districts under that same sign package, with the idea that we'll try to treat every commercial or industrially zoned property, whether inside an industrial park, outside of an industrial park, within the highway corridor, consistently. That's the recommendation you have from the Planning Commission.
Does any board member have a comment before I go ahead and open the public hearing?
Just wanted to make sure, Mr. Fincham, in Section 2A, and you've given us a blue line version, I appreciate it. The real issue is you're actually reducing the size of freestanding signs from 15 feet to 8 feet and 100 feet to 32 square feet in area. So we're actually going to make them all smaller in this case.
In some cases, they will be smaller, except the highway corridor regulations already supersede those standards in many cases.
So which one takes precedent?
The highway corridor, the more restrictive standards would take precedence. Yes, sir.
When there's a case like that, the more restrictive one takes precedent.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Thank you, sir.
Is there a special exception process built into this one?
There is a special exception process built in that allows the board to hear requests for modifications to the sign regulations.
I didn't see electric signs included specifically. I saw it internally illuminated, and I'm speaking specifically regarding the new sign that sprung up at Giuseppe's.
Which is a message board,
Yes.
which was allowed under the current ordinance.
Okay.
But I think we still have some other regulations, some modifications to make to the sign regs.
Right.
You recall, I said one of the objectives we were also going to pursue was to begin the process of making the sign regulations content neutral in order to comply with state and federal Supreme Court decisions. We started that process. We did not have time to finish that, given that these amendments were referred to the commission. We still have that work to do, and message boards, lighting, glare, etc., is one of those things that we still
Blinding
need to
light.
address. There was a song to that effect.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Does anyone else have any comments? Yes, yeah, he could do. Well, we have to vote on them. We have to vote on them separately, but yeah, we can conclude them together.
Mr. Fincham, I just have one question on 77-3, page 3. And I think it might just be a typo. Everywhere else where you mention provided by section such and such, and then this time it's section 48-5, you have chapter so-and-so, whatever, or the Code of Virginia. And this one just has the section number, but it doesn't reference anything.
There was
So,
this section 48-
5, is that of the Code of Virginia?
Yes.
So will we put Code of Virginia in there, please? Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing for text amendment 05-2017 and text amendment 06-2017. Is there anyone else, is there anyone who would like to speak regarding these issues? Once again, is there anyone who would like to speak regarding these issues? All right, with that in mind, I will go ahead and close the public hearing. I'll Any board members have any additional comments?
We're not, I'm sorry. We're not at all addressing the electronic signs like they just did in Fredericksburg, right?
No, sir. We have regulations for message boards and electronic signs now. That has not been amended as part of this.
No, okay. All right.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? If not, Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that we approve text amendment 05-207 as amended.
Do I have a second? We have a motion and a second. Mr. Thomas, is there any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Since we can do these both together.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go for it.
I'd make a motion that we approve text amendment 06-2017 as presented by staff.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion on the motion? Oh. Yes.
Top one.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, we are now to agenda item number 6 on the under the public hearing. Rezoning 02-2017, 17431 Jefferson Davis Highway LLC, owner applicant. Request from a rezoning of B1 business conditional, consisting of 0.9 acres, more or less business conditional, okay, on tax map number 52A-136. Mr. Fincham?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, your next public hearing tonight, RZ02-2017, is a request to bonify the proffers from a previously approved rezoning to allow an additional 5-year extension to the requirement that the project be developed in accordance with the originally approved plan of development. In 2007, this property was zoned B1 business with a substantial proffer package that allowed up to close to 50,000 square feet of commercial, office, and retail space, the parking there too, and a very defined development plan for that property. The economy failed to perform as was expected to allow the development of this property. And in 2013, the applicant came to the board requesting a 5-year extension to build to that development plan and allow them to continue to use the existing one-story building for a very small business. It's an insurance office. Fast forward to today, the owner has again requested a proffer amendment to allow them to continue to use that existing one-story building for the limited office use that's there now, and not have to comply with or not have to construct the originally approved 50,000 square foot project owing to market conditions. The Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on this and forwarded this recommendation to the board with a recommendation of approval. So in effect, this would allow the continued use of the single-story office building on that property through the year 2023.
Thank you.
I have a question of Mr. Fincham. 1 acre is 43,000 square feet, correct?
Pardon?
1 acre, 43,000 square feet.
Yes, sir.
How do you build a 50,000 square foot building on a 0.9 acre parcel?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. When we looked at the plan, it was a consolidated plan between 2 different parcels of land.
So
a portion
stop there
of...
a second. So what we're looking at in the diagram that we have in the board packet, there's all kinds of boxes around all kinds of pieces of land. And there's an arrow that says this site. So that site is 0.9 acres.
Yes. And there's a piece of property back behind there that was part of that development plan as well. So the two parcels together allowed the roughly 50,000 square foot planned commercial and office park.
Okay.
This request is specific to this piece of property where the one-story office building is located.
And is the office building occupied right now?
Yes, sir, it is. So the parcel back behind there, which was part of the rezoning, this condition only applies to this piece, the modification.
Okay. I mean, I know you can get 50,000 square feet on .9 acres, but you wouldn't park a single car.
No, you're right.
I mean, you'd park a few cars,
Yes.
but not enough to occupy.
Yes, the
50,000
actual
square
plan of development encompassed two pieces of property.
feet. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Thomas.
Mr. Fincham, I seem to recall you being here in 2007.
Your memory's better than mine.
Sometime. This was a project where he was actually going to do a lot more work. He was actually going to do some development on that other parcel.
Yes, sir.
Did it seem at that point in time that this was a speculative operation? Because now here we are 10 years later, and I know the economy did some good and bad in between that, but there has been actually no action in this. And this would be our second waiver of his 5-year improvement plan.
I think the original intent was to go forth with the full development plan. The beginnings of the recession occurred at least in Caroline County, occurred shortly after this project went through the zoning process. And I would suggest that the demand for this type of commercial space, with the design standards that were incorporated into the original plan, is probably not back yet here in the county. It's been a struggle. For example, there's another planned commercial project a little bit further north on Route 1 across from Ladysmith Village that we've had trouble building that project out as well.
I smile because that used to be in the Mattapan district, so I'm well aware of that one. But I mean, you've talked about this before. Shouldn't we have some sort of time frame on our rezonings and things like this? If you don't do anything in 5 years, this is 10 years now, shouldn't it revert back? I mean, that's if the applicant came and said he wanted to revert back to it, that would be an easy decision. Yeah, fine, you didn't do anything for 10 years. But now we're definitely looking at more of a speculative operation, because you're sitting here 10 years later and say, well, I couldn't do anything now. I'm hoping to do something 10 years from now. Sure, that's a discussion we would have with the applicant, but my point was to get to you is sooner or later we have to say if you don't do anything in a certain amount of time, you lose your rezoning change, which would seem fair, because we've got 20 or 30,000 housing developed or sites that have been approved, and none of them have ever done anything.
I think there's a big legal question as to whether you can have a sunset provision on a approved zoning.
Maybe Mr. Emerson in his spare time will research that for us.
Mr. Fincham, I just have a question. If these properties are joined together, why, in the overall plan, why is the extension only on one parcel?
Because this parcel had the existing commercial building on there that was required to be demolished. And the language spoke to this particular piece of property. The other piece of property has zoning as well. It's a separate zoning number, case number, and the two properties were combined under the same development plan. So this zoning applied to this specific piece of property and the language contained therein.
So the bigger piece of the back is where he had to take down a building when he bought the property?
Pardon?
The larger piece of land in the back is where a building was demolished years ago?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
No.
This is the building that's currently occupied that would have been demolished
Would have been. Okay.
to allow the redevelopment of the property.
But it seems to me all you're doing is extending the time for that plan of development to be put into effect. If you don't take any action, that would lapse. You wouldn't be able to do that, but you'd still be able to operate the small business in the little building, it seems to me.
We're basically saying we're going to give him another 5 years to develop the property. And then he'll come back in 5 years if he hasn't done anything and say, oh, by the way, could I get another 5-year extension?
Right, or if he didn't, or if you didn't approve it, it would lapse, and then he could come back and, in the future and ask to have it reapproved at some point.
Yeah.
But it's not going to change the ability to operate.
He's still going to run his business there, right?
Right.
Which is fine.
I mean, it's a home, basically. There's
One-story Rambler's been converted to
a
commercial
functional
space.
business. It's not a blight. It's well-maintained. I mean, just so everyone's aware, it's not ugly to look at. It's not an issue as far as its current condition. So it's,
One more question, Mr. Christian, if you would. Since this plan is now 10 years old, does the design still fit all current day requirements? Setbacks, everything else change over time. It's still appropriate.
Yes, ma'am.
We don't
It
need
was
to make
designed
any
with the
changes.
highway corridor and Lady Smith sub-area plan standards in mind.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions before I?
and
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Fincham, if he were to pursue this, he would submit a new site plan, would go through this whole approval process, or now that
He-
it's already rezoned, he can?
He already has zoning. He has the development plan, which was proffered. He would
Right.
submit a site plan. We would review it for conformance with the
But he-
zoning, including the development
But
plan.
it can be vastly different than what's here, if he chooses it to be.
Actually, it has to be fairly consistent with the development plan that was approved with the original zoning. So he cannot vary from it very much.
Okay.
The site plan is different from the development plan.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Finch, just so I'm clear, if the present approval expires, he continues to operate on the .9 acres just like it is that correct? And would have to come back should he want to do anything else? That's what you just said?
It would expire, but he would be obligated to develop to the development plan. If you don't grant the extension, then he has to develop in accordance with the development plan, which encompasses that the original GDP that was approved.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve.
We didn't even open the public hearing yet. We had all these questions. Does anyone else before I open the yes? Does anyone else have any questions before I open the public hearing? All right. With that in mind, I am going to open the public hearing, RZ 02-2017, 431 Jefferson Davis Highway, LLC, owner applicant. Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter?
Mr. Chairman and the board, I'm Gary Watts. I'm the owner of the property, and kind of here I'll answer questions. I've listened to the discussion that's gone on, and I think the best information I heard is what Mr. Thomas brought up about how things that were zoned in that era of almost a fantasy economy that couldn't make happen at that time, and still trying to find the right backing to make it go. And I was trying to put the best use to the property. I was not the one that had it rezoned. I purchased it at auction. Mr. William Beach, Bill Beach at that time had developed that. And I actually bought it at public auction and was trying to, anyhow, basically knew that plan that came with it at auction wasn't going to be what was going to happen at that point, and tried to put the best fit to the property to make a rather upstanding business work at that point. So it's kind of an excuse to keep something going, and I promise you to the fact that if we want to write it into the proffers, whatever we call it, I won't block any other future coming through that. If they want their road to come through from Commerce Road in any kind of way, that house needs to be moved, and I'm thinking about as Walmart comes in or who comes in, and that needs to be a thoroughfare through there. I'm all for it. I just don't have a plan at this point, and I think that we have a nice ongoing business that's in a working fashion that's not a nuisance. And with putting a little humor to it, your own Board of Supervisors building is the old fire department is more of a nuisance look than what my property is. But we're not there to improve that right now. We'll get that done, and I've offered to help get that done. But that's the consideration that I'm asking, just to keep this moving till something better can happen. And what I understand when it was approved in '07, that it made it all the way to the point of where the stoplight, who was going to furnish the stoplight where it entered Route 1, whether I forget it was one of the drugstore chains was coming on that corner, and it got there and everybody was fighting over who was going to do that stoplight. This is what I've understood. And the economy just fell from underneath of it. And Mr. Fincham could probably correct me on this, but when we were talking about whose property was involved and what went on, I think part of Evan Stout's property to the left was incorporated in that rezoning as well. So all those things played together as a total rezoning process in '07 during that, I'll just call it a fantasy time of economy where everything was going. So I'm here for questions if I can help.
Anyone have any questions for the applicant? Mr. Thomas?
Because you said something, Mr. Watts, I don't have any problem with just letting it go again, but you said something that kind of piqued my interest, and you did say add a little humor to it, but did I understand you correctly when you said you wouldn't mind giving up your property to VDOT?
No, sir. If it became constructive to, I'm not going to stop, future development coming through right there. I'd like to see it. I'm not saying I don't know how the funding will go. I don't know how much.
Buy it from you. Yeah.
No, I didn't say even buy it from me. I'm not saying how much I'm going to contribute toward it.
Okay.
You understand what I mean? Because that's a lot of difference between those two questions.
All right. I'm good. I don't have any problem.
Thank you.
If we're ready to go.
Is there anyone else? Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter? With that in mind, I will close the R rezoning 02-2017 public hearing. Board, how would we like to handle this matter?
I would like to make a motion that we extend it as requested for 5 years.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. All right. We have number 7, another public hearing. Proposed amendments to the Chapter 77 of the Code of Caroline County Property Maintenance Code.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this is your last public hearing tonight. This is the proposed amendments to the county's property maintenance code that was brought forth to the board at your last meeting for first reading, which you referred to public hearing tonight. As we had previously discussed, there are a couple of purposes for these amendments. Number one, the current version does not contain some penalties with some sections, such as the public nuisance section. So we've gone back through, cleaned up, added language where that language needed to be added to address some of the penalty provisions. The second issue was to bring the language in conformity with the Code of Virginia. There were some references in the code that were not necessarily specified in the state code. We've tried to bring this back basically as closely to the state code as possible. Final aspect of this, as the board's aware, we always have to bring property maintenance issues to the board for you to authorize the formal notice of violation. Under these proposed amendments, that would be, become the responsibility of the county administrator, and he would be allowed on your behalf to send violation notices to offending parties. And with that, I'll address any questions the board may have.
Anyone have any questions before we open the public hearing?
One and only one. In this particular, my note says that I didn't see anything that says the county administrator would contact the respective supervisor. In this, I know that's probably Mr. Cully's policy, but in 20 years when he's not here, we need to kind of codify that to make sure. Because we don't all know all of the bad properties in our district. And I think it would just be beneficial for all of us to have the county administrator contact the corresponding supervisor before he sends out the letter. If I don't respond back to you, that's my fault. But if I don't know about it and then I get a call from somebody saying the county's trying to take my property or trying to cut my grass or whatever, you're kind of blindsided. And I know we don't have that problem with Mr. Cully, but like I said, in 20 years when the next county administrator...
Mr. Thomas, I'd suggest that you, I'm not saying I have anything in opposition to what you're asking. I just would recommend that you do that as a policy that the board adopts and instructs the county administrator to follow, as opposed to putting it in the ordinance, because if you put it in the ordinance, a lawyer for the property owner is going to start trying to make sure that that's been done and argue that it wasn't done, and therefore the enforcement action is not valid, and it just complicates the legal process.
Now, why would it make sense in a court case?
Because he didn't follow the ordinance. If the ordinance requires Mr. Cully to notify the
offending party and the corresponding supervisor.
And the supervisor, they're going to subpoena his records of having done that, which he may or may not have. And if he forgot to do it, then your whole enforcement action is gone. You're not going to win. And whereas if he forgot to do it, you may have an employment issue with him or a performance issue, but at least it doesn't derail your property maintenance enforcement.
I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I just like common sense. And common sense would tell me that it's really the issues between the offending property owner and the county. The courtesy I'm asking for is so that, you know, when somebody sees a property down here on 301 and they think it's me and it's really Mr. Seeley, and he doesn't know and gets blindsided, and Charlie's going to send out a letter to both of us.
I'm not opposed to the courtesy or anything else. I'm just telling you that if you put it in the ordinance, it becomes another thing that has to be proven in court, and that if it's not done, if it's done incorrectly, it will provide a defense to whatever action you're seeking in the court.
All right, I'll wait until after this and make a motion that we have a policy that the county administrator can send us out. I still think it's better to be in the ordinance, but I'm late, and I'm getting cranky. You haven't seen what happens after a while.
All right. Is there anyone else? I haven't opened that yet. Have I? No.
Public hearing.
Yes. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing regarding the proposed amendments to Chapter 77 of the Code of Caroline County Property Maintenance Code. Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this matter? All right. Perfect. With that in mind, I will go ahead and close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move the adoption of the proposed changes to the property maintenance code.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Fincham?
Could we amend that motion
Mr.
to
Chairman.
include the modification requested by?
Yeah, I like that. I was going to
Ms.
do a
Long.
second thing, but we can do it all at once.
Okay.
I'd motion to, and this will be strictly with property maintenance, I'd motion to approve the proposed amendments to Chapter 77 of the property maintenance code, and I would also motion to make it the policy of this board that the county administrator should always contact the corresponding supervisors whenever there's a property maintenance violation.
You forgot her correction.
Yeah, would you also add, amend 77-3 to say section 48-5 in the Code of Virginia?
Oh, this says state
Yes.
Code of Virginia. Didn't he have the little squiggle that implies Code of Virginia, but that's fine. I will accept that amendment. And your second is good?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, we are now to number 9 on the agenda, which is the further discussion of county contribution to retain legal counsel and subject matter expert to contest Aqua Virginia application to the state corporation for a rate increase in water and wastewater infrastructure surcharge. I guess I'll go ahead and start. I think it was at our last meeting, we were, Mr. Forehand and I, well, at least I was instructed, I think Mr. Forehand was not here, to do a town hall meeting. It was a mailing that was sent out. We were asked to do a town hall meeting. We did. We had 125 people showed up. I would venture to say that a majority of the people that showed up, Mrs. Long was there as well, and I would probably venture to say an overwhelming majority, Mr. Forehand can corroborate, and Ms. Long as well, were against the rate increase, and I believe wanted us to do something to fight this. You asked us at the last board meeting under instruction to recruit other entities. Lake Landor has given $25,000. Fluvanna County has chipped in as well, and we're not done yet. We're still looking. Okay, so we did that. I would like the board to remember that of the number of homes in Caroline County, and I don't have that factor, 25%, 24.5% of our homes are served by Aqua Virginia. So it's 1/4 of our population. If you would for a second, because this was the, I can't thank enough Mr. Schiebel and county staff, if you would look at page 13. So this was put together by, really Mr. Schiebel did a lot of this, Mr. Parton. Okay, and then you can see the comparison of what is proposed versus what the most expensive one in the area is. King George is the most expensive public utility. For 5,000 gallons of water and sewer, someone in King George pays $106.15. The proposed rate by Aqua Virginia would charge someone living in Caroline County that's on sewer, so that could be Bridlewood, not just Lake Landor, $170.37, which is obviously about $60-something more than King George. If you look, and additionally, when we talk about attorney fees, this county, I can put it up for you, but this county has spent over $100,000 in attorney fees for a sand and gravel mine. If we look at the savings on the WIS cases, which are back there, all right, which are at 4,000 and 5,000 gallons, you can see that information is there. You can read that. I'm not going to go over that too much. But one of the big things that's in here is what Caroline has done for other systems, what the county has done for other systems. And that's also in this packet. And you can see that we have helped out Dawn by putting in a wastewater system. Okay. We have helped out Port Royal by giving a boundary line adjustment. We have helped out Lake Caroline, okay, when Lake Caroline had a problem with their water system. So those are just a few of the instances where we have helped out. We just helped out Caroline Pines. So those are some of the things in that packet. And I ask you to turn to page 18, I guess that's 18 and 19 of this. Okay? And that's where it is. Caroline Pines, Port Royal. So that's some of the things that we have done. All right. But one of the last things is if you look at the very end, the very last couple pages, okay, you guys probably, any of you guys traveled up and down Route 1, south of Ladysmith Village? There was a gentleman who has put a sign out at Campbell's Creek, and he loves to put a sign out. And I don't even know what the sign says. It's basically encouraging people not to move into Caroline County because of aqua water and sewer. And I can't say I blame him. But that is not good for us. That is not good for Caroline County when someone has a sign out, do not move into Caroline County because of what you're going to be paying on a private water system for water and sewer. What we did, Mr. Schiebel put together, what would happen if the areas affected by Aqua Virginia just lost 5% in value, home value, because of Aqua Virginia? The county, right here, would lose $211,000 in real estate taxes. 1 penny, close to 1 penny. If those same subdivisions that are served by Aqua Virginia lost 10% of real estate value, we would lose $423,000 in real estate taxes. I can't stress this enough, and I've heard it, and I mean, I have an obligation to all of my constituents, and I completely understand that. But let me be clear, and I think all of us think the same way. We represent a district, but we also represent all of Caroline County. And this is not a Lake Landor problem. This is not a Western Caroline problem. This is a Caroline problem. And so we can sit here and we can leave $25,000 on the table from Lake Landor, $5,000 from Fluvanna, and we can sit here and do nothing, or we can try to fight it. And that's the choice that we have. And I understand I don't like paying the lawyers' fees, but if you look at this, we had a $2 million surplus this year. This is what we proposed, $40,000 to $50,000. That's 2.5% of our surplus. If you look at the total budget, it's 0.1% of our budget. If I appreciate Ms. Long coming out, I appreciate, obviously, Mr. Forehand, and I appreciate that all the citizens that came out. But those citizens, we talk about people that are struggling. Those citizens are struggling. And when constituents are struggling with something, we have to step up. Those are my comments. Mr. Thomas, do you have anything?
I think I've expressed my position to you before, and pretty much I brought it up last month and said the county should at least investigate what it would take to acquire that system by eminent domain, because we basically have a choice of death by 1,000 cuts or bite the bullet one time. As I told Mr. Evans, who was here, it seems like it's every 2 years. It's not I think I've been through this quite a few times, so if you want to fight me, I'll be happy to fight really hard. So that's where I go.
Mr. Forehand.
I have a big chunk of constituents that are paying double what I pay. And the way I look at it is I can participate in a fight against it because I don't think it's right, or I can do nothing and let them suffer. And we have some numbers that show what the fight last time saved individuals. You know, it wasn't big money per year, per household. But if you were to add up, you know, that $47 or whatever it works out to be per household, and multiply that by the several thousand households that are served by Aqua, that turns into a big chunk of money that was not taken out of our local economy, that was hopefully spent at least partially in Caroline County. That was not taken out of the pockets of those folks that live here. So given that, I don't think it's acceptable in my position and in my heart to do nothing, and I will support moving ahead with that fight.
Mr. Seeley?
I think this needs to be looked at from a county perspective and not individual homeowner perspectives or individual community perspectives. The loss in real estate value is what we need to look at collectively because it affects everybody in the county. If the values in the western part of the county go down, the rest of us pay for it as folks come to Caroline. They're going to come. They'll stay away from the western side of the county and they'll move to other areas, which will raise the property values over here, but will suppress the property values in western Caroline. That suppression hurts everybody. So I don't know that I want to look at this from a single household perspective or a single development perspective, but I'd like to look at it from the county perspective of what it does to everybody long term. And from that perspective, I'm willing to move forward. But I don't think you can look at this from, I do like Mr. Forehand's point about the money that wasn't taken out in water and sewer costs, hopefully was put back into the Caroline County economy because we have to look locally. How does it help everybody? Because this is if we're going to do this fight, it's an everybody fight, not the subdivisions that are served fight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Underwood?
Mr. Chairman, I absolutely agree that anytime people are harmed without recourse, they have to seek support from wherever they can. I do think that Aqua's rates are unreasonable, and their requests for increases are unreasonable. As a business person, you know, the old saying is that you either produce or you perish, but when you're a monopoly and people don't have a choice, that kind of goes out the window. I am concerned, as you mentioned, that we did have a $2 million surplus and we raised taxes, 1 cent on the same citizens that we're talking about saving, that same $200,000 that we raised based on the 1 cent tax increase. Could have used some of that to defend exactly what you're talking about. So I say, again, I have a concern. I don't want any citizen of Caroline County to be hurt, regardless of where they are. But I see rose-colored glasses at times based on the issue, and that concerns me. That's my comment, Mr. Chairman.
Mrs. Long?
I'm very concerned about the decrease in the property value tax and the fact that it discourages people from being able to move into Caroline. And the western side of Caroline is where we have our utilities. It's where we have our planned growth. That's where it needs to go. I will tell you, I was very impressed by the turnout at the meeting, the passion of those that were there, just the unfairness of it all. Maybe a little bit of, the Goliath and David situation in that they feel very imposed upon and with very little recourse. Personally, I think this is eventually all going to have to be settled at a state issue, but that's going to take time, just as Mr. Thomas's recommendation and thought for the future is going to take time and expenses. But in the meantime, citizens deserve to feel like they're protected and that they matter to us, and the economy matters to us. The taxes, the lack of revenue coming into town, into the county, all that's of concern. These people, these communities have put up $30,000, $35,000? $30,000. And there's a possibility of another county possibly coming in. I think certainly this board could support by making a gesture of appropriating funds to at least match or a little more. Perhaps if you think we're looking at $30,000, $35,000 or $40,000, get this thing started. These cases, these hearings are going to take time. They can still work on raising more funds and reaching out to other counties that are in this fight. We're not the only ones being abused here. And if we have it in court, it may help support phase 2 of this future plan that we've been discussing. So those are my thoughts.
How would the board like to proceed?
Mr. Black, I'll make a motion to start and open it for negotiation that Board of Supervisors allot $45,000 toward the law. 45? 45? They have 30, they need 45 to get started with the lawyer. To start action, legal action against the proposed rates for Aqua.
You say 45 to add to the 30? It's already there. Okay. I'll second that.
I have a motion. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion?
May I ask Mrs. Long if she would consider adding to her motion and the county investigate the possibility of acquiring the aqua systems in the county?
I would be glad to do that.
Should we do something that this is a not to exceed with the hopes that our efforts to recruit more counties would reduce our burden? Mr. Kelly, do you think that's a possibility, or is it a dream? No, we have some tentacles out.
Yeah, the other thing you got to decide is who you're going to actually employ. But you're basically going to be negotiating with a firm how much work they'll do for the amount of money that you can put forward. And they're not going to put a top limit on it, but you may get we can get this much done if it's. I mean, you can speak to that better than I can, but I don't think you're going to find somebody to say, all right, I'm going to do all of this work completely 100% for X, because there's a lot of unknowns, I think, that go along with what they have to do with the
But
SEC.
they're never lower than what you anticipate.
Not normally.
Well, I guess the point is, do we want to, at this point, with this motion, do a do not exceed?
Mr. Forehand, I will say that we do have estimates, and the range of 85 to 115, which you saw, and the lower one was actually from the lady that fought the case before.
She didn't have to read all the background information.
Right, she's done it several times. So that would still put us in needing to raise some additional funds from other counties.
So this would still leave us that we're still looking for some partners.
Yes.
To finish the
Yes.
team. Okay.
So we have a motion for $45,000 on the table. We have a second. Any other? No.
And she accepted my friendly amendment of
And
pursuing.
staff pursuing, looking into the possibility of
Yeah. Can we take that, Mr. Thomas, would you mind taking that off the table until there's more research done on that situation?
Actually, I would, Mr. Chairman, because I think we need to make a forceful statement in this case. And by saying we are moving forward to looking into acquiring your system, says to Aqua, they might be serious this time. I've been here for quite a few of these,
Okay. I
and
got you.
we've spent a lot of money in
Right.
legal fees.
Okay. That's fine. Okay.
I think that one motion provides all we need. You're saying yes to the folks there, you're going to help, but you're also saying yes to everybody else in the county of we're going to get rid of this money drain all the time in legal fees because Aqua does it every 2 or 3 years, and we're going to try to make this system ours. Otherwise, we're just saying, okay, whenever they need a Band-Aid, we'll throw a Band-Aid on it. You know, let's fix the scar.
Yep. Yep.
So I'll agree to amend my motion.
Seconded.
Thank you.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 5-1. One of the things I would like to also just direct, if we could direct county staff to go with the lower estimate from McGuire Woods.
How do we proceed with actually hiring legal counsel for this, Mr. Cully?
Legal counsel is exempt from the Procurement Act, so just the board wants to use that estimate. We would negotiate the contract with the appropriate firm that you have chosen.
Was that negotiated number, the number that we have, or is that just throw it at the wall, see what
That's
sticks?
just an estimate. We would have to do further negotiation to get a contract together, or what we would get for what we were able to put in.
So there's still some opportunity there.
I don't think it's coming. I don't think it's coming down below a floor.
Okay. All right. Mr. and Mrs. Long?
I just have a question. Since we have private funds coming in and we have county funds, are we forming a committee between someone from the other county and the homeowners associations and you to sort of decide on things? Who's handling the checkbook? Yes, is my question.
The county.
And if you're a party to this, then whoever that party designee for the other jurisdictions and the neighborhood will have access to something we just need to set up to be clarified.
All right. Yep. So do we have a motion for that? We probably need a motion for that, right? Correct? The legal counsel. Negotiate with McGuire Woods.
Make a motion that we aggressively negotiate legal counsel for this purpose, for the Aqua defense purposes.
With McGuire Woods.
Mr. McGuire Woods.
I have a motion, I'll second that. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we are on to agenda item number, we did 10, right? We're on number 11, the further discussion of a possible towing advisory board. All right, who is this?
Mr. Chairman, I still believe that a towing advisory board is some entity to help with the citizens as well as visitors across the county or coming through the county who have difficulty and need towing, have some idea of what they are going to be charged as well as some recourse if they feel they've been wrong based on services rendered. I've had opportunity to look on the website for a couple local towing companies, and you read some of the out-of-state comments. A lot of people feel like they're getting ripped off because they're from out of state. So I just think there needs to be some kind of regulation put in place, and I think the best people to regulate and give input is the towing industry themselves. So, and I know the sheriff said he didn't want to be part of this, but I remind all of those constitutional officers that the county does pay part of their salary, and a huge part of the salaries. So I think while the sheriff doesn't work for us specifically, just want to remind him that $40-something thousand of his salary comes from the county coffers. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Is there anyone else who would like to?
Well, I thought our move was to get back together with the towers one more time. And I don't know that we've got a chance between, we've got Thanksgiving coming and Christmas coming. We're running out of days.
Mrs. Seeley, with all due respect, we put this off down for 4 months because we didn't have it was summertime and they were busy. It was this and there was something else. I think we need to go ahead and try to schedule it. I was out of town. I think
I
Mr.
was out of
Forehand
town.
and you were out of town as well for our last meeting.
Let's pick a day.
So I think I'd like to see if we can pick a day. We can have a meeting prior to our regular scheduled meeting and meet with the board.
We've already got a joint session with the school board for our December meeting.
Pick another evening. Yep.
And Mr. Cully, while we're looking for dates, don't forget, I still sort of like the idea of having printed on the back of the ticket that the receipt they get, having contact information for either the tow board or the county administrator. If anybody has a complaint about a tower or even the sheriff's department and they don't want to complain to a legal entity, they would have a contact number to appeal to. That we can also add in with the tow board. I think that would be simple and appropriate. So I'll throw that idea out there to you for your discussion with the tow board.
Do we have enough time if we wanted to pick December 5th?
I was just looking at the same date.
Is there enough time to get the notification out there, get the schedule? Only gives you 2.5 weeks.
We would just have to call the towers, and you just need to continue this meeting until that time on the 5th.
I'm here right now.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
I think I'm all set.
December 5th, 6 o'clock.
All right, we will go to agenda item number 12. Everyone's all set with that, right? Okay. All right, agenda item number 12 is discussion of possible relocation of the Dawn voting precinct. That's going to be Nick.
Mr. Chairman and board members, the voter register came to me a couple of years ago during the election, had concerns about being able to secure the Dawn Progressive Center, which is our voting precinct. Subsequently, we've had a number of comments regarding health and safety concerns, and in your packet, Mr. Whiteman was so gracious to go over and do a full inspection, and it's in your there are some serious concerns there, and as I talked to members of the Dawn Progressive Association, the board has given notice on several occasions. If you look at the, again, enclosed inspection from 2008 up till 2015, as recent as yesterday, I believe, or when Mr. Whiteman went in and did a full inspection. If you look at the pictures that are there, they're quite disturbing in terms of the electrical issue, the mold that's there, the ceiling tile. It is definitely not inhabitable. So I have asked the voter registrar, Kathy, I can't think of her last name, right? McVeigh, Ms. McVeigh, to begin the process by which I say that the voting precinct has to be moved. And I think at this point, I think the county needs to make a statement that this property has been there in need of dire repair. And I think we need to send a statement that this can no longer be acceptable and be inhabitable by anyone. I think we need to send a clear message that we cannot tolerate this any longer.
And you would want them to move to the library since
So,
the county built that building?
so what has to happen, Ms. McVeigh will start the process to move. I've asked her to look at the Dawn Library as the new voting precinct, and she'll come back to us when she gets all the paperwork done and starts the process. Start the process.
We need a motion to start that process.
So, Mr. Chairman, board members, I make a motion that we start the process to move the voting precinct from the Dawn Progressive Association to the Dawn Library immediately.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, number 13 on the agenda deals with the policy for golf cart communities.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, when the board adopted the amendments to the county code related to golf carts, several members, I believe Mr. Seeley and Ms. Long, asked staff to prepare a draft policy for board consideration for other similar communities that might want to pursue the use of golf carts within their community. And what you have before you tonight is staff's first draft for your consideration of a policy, which includes a draft petition which would meet the requirement that any application or request be on a form approved by the Board of Supervisors. So this is staff's first draft. I put it on the agenda tonight for the board to review and discuss and provide me any input that you might have as to changes you'd like to see.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Mr. Fincham, number 3, if approved by the association, a written request signed by the, I'd rather see a resolution signed by the board members.
Okay?
And I would hope that it would be unanimous. I mean, I know that's probably asking a lot, but a resolution signed by those that are voting for it, and then a list of who did not.
Okay?
Because we get into these tail chases of this one wasn't at the meeting and didn't know what was going on, or they didn't inform them. So I'd just like to see this, everybody, just like we did for the library to be part of the county. We had them, the entire board sign a resolution. I think it needs to be something similar to that as well.
Okay. I would also ask you all to look at number 1. I purposely left a percentage of owners blank. I would suggest you want something more than 51%, but 2/3, 3/4, 70%.
Mr. Fincham, do the homeowners associations tend to have their own requirement for their meetings, like, to do so-and-so, it has to be a 75% property owner agreement? Do they vary?
I'm sure there's some variation, Ms. Long, and I can look at the bylaws for a couple of our communities here in the county to see what those percentages are. And it may depend on what the vote is for, as to the percentage, that might be required for action.
My thought was we don't want to step on their toes or make it less enforced than their association, but don't want to be unreasonable either. So I didn't know if it was somehow be written flexibly according to the homeowners association.
Can we look and see what some of the homeowners, because what I don't want is 51%, because only a little more than half are for it, which is never going to be a good situation. Well, I think that you're going to have, because the association has to be responsible for the inspection and decals and all the various and sundry things that take place for the golf carts, correct?
Yes.
They become responsible for all that.
They're the responsible party.
So they're going to have to be significantly responsible because of what it's going to entail them in board matters, in just enforcement. So it's going to have to be a pretty high bar. So, I mean, I would look, but I would like to see something like 75%, just because of what is involved once they do this. There is a lot the homeowners association has to maintain, and I think they need to be aware of that.
They're responsible for the inspection program. It's all on the board.
And they've got to put up their own signs. They've got to spend funds. 2/3. I'm just picking a number.
I like 2/3 because that's double the number that are for than are against, whereas 75% is 3 to 1. And
Bad odds.
You can't get 75% of anybody.
I'm good with 2/3. I just know that there's cost associated with it, and the homeowners association is going to have to absorb that cost.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I was talking this long. What are we?
66%. I think quorum in Ladysmith Village is 20%.
And yeah, less than that, like
I just know that it needs to be something. I don't have a problem 66, 60. I mean,
65.
something above, just because they're going to have to spend funds to actually maintain all this. Those are my.
Mr. Underwood, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, I agree with Mr. Seeley, surprisingly. No. I think,
That'd be even worse.
I think the percentage should be to the point that it's not just a low bar, we need to set a high bar to make sure that it's enforceable.
Two-thirds, I mean,
Two-thirds
two-thirds is
is a
like,
good
like
number.
Mr. Forehand said, that's double the number of against. I don't have a problem with that.
Go for it.
Two-thirds of the subdivision. No, two-thirds of the sub, it's two-thirds of the residents.
Two-thirds of the owners of record.
Right, two-thirds of the owners of record, so it's. Well, I don't, this is going back to staff, we're gonna get this cleaned up, so.
Anyone have anything else?
I'll make the modifications, get it on the next agenda.
Yeah, we'll go from there.
66.6.
Can we just say
Six.
two-thirds?
Kidding.
Okay, we can move on then. Anyone have any other questions? All right, so we are to number 14, which is possible upgrades to the playground equipment at the Main County Park and Ladysmith Park.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have an issue, but I think these are capital projects, and it's a little tough to add them at this time of the year, and the same thing with like agenda item number 16. That project is also double the price that we initially thought it was going to be. And I think those could, I'm not opposed to those projects, but I think they need to wait till later in the budget year and/or add them in as a capital project later on, just because they're funds that aren't planned, and I don't know that we can actually allocate those funds. And it's the wrong time of year. We're moving into winter to begin with, so any of that kind of work is just, I'd just move to table those until sometime late in the third quarter.
Mr. Thomas, what's your opinion?
I would concur as far as the parks. I think we said we were going to do something to the convenience site for quite some time, so I don't remember how long it's been. It's probably been a couple of years, right, Mr. Shebel?
Been about a year and a half.
Yeah, so, and I just had a constituent say something about that the day of the election. She's a senior citizen, her husband's a senior citizen, and they used the Bowling Green convenience site and found it a little difficult.
Yeah.
At 6 feet tall, I find it a little difficult sometimes myself, depending on the weight at which it's thrown away.
The other thing about the drawing that we've got
Yes, sir.
is my fear is that people are going to drive in, never see the attendant hit those boxes and take off. Is there something we can do to make this more attendant supervised so that we don't end up with all kinds of things in these open top boxes that we really didn't intend? Because we're not looking to put the stuff that goes in the compactor into these open tops, are we?
No.
That's my other concern with it. I looked at this drawing. When you come in, I mean, I watch people make a beeline all the time. Is there anything else we can do at that facility with being able to route people past the attendant so he can instruct them where that material's to go?
There's no place economically to be able to do that. There's already a relief cut there that's easy to do that. There's already a traffic pattern to get the bigger trucks in and out to move the boxes out of there. We did try to look at the line of sight to make sure that the compactor wasn't in the way so that they can look across the site from the scale house to be able to see those.
By the time you see somebody hoisting stuff in there that you don't want in there, they're going to be gone. And I've watched attendants say you can't put that in there, and people want to start yelling at them and cursing at them, and it's just not a good situation.
Two of the boxes are, one's the metal box, and the metal box is very hard to see. It's actually on the opposite side.
I understand.
And in the other boxes in the back, they can't even see. So it does bring two of the boxes in closer proximity. And then the two open-top boxes, they physically have to be outside to see somebody dumping now. So this actually gives them a line of sight from inside, and then when they're on the site. So we tried with the site that we had to do that, but we'll be glad to look at any other options.
Can we, just a point of order here. Aren't we on the county park first?
Yeah, but we sort of,
Yeah, can we
I
cover-
mistakenly tied them
Can we
together.
cover, can we, yeah.
I did tie them together since they were both spending, so it's my fault.
Right. You mind if we just take one at a time?
That's fine.
On number 15, we were on the park.
Number 14.
Number 14, I'm sorry, yeah, 14, we were on the park. We had said we were okay with tabling. Mr. Forehand, was your, on the park, what was your suggestion?
We're doing budget in January, right?
Yeah, they're starting now.
Yeah, I would like to roll it in. I like everything we got here, and I think we need to look at putting some money towards the budget. So it can work out.
Mr. Shebel, the only thing I would say on the Ladysmith Park, and it's something that was already been done, is you guys have done a fabulous job of what you've already done with that park. But something very simple and and cost a lot of money is those basketball boards. I mean, you've seen them, the backboards to the basketball. The paint on those plexiglass boards is gone.
Yeah, we've taken pictures and sent them to Pro Dunk, which is the company we ordered them from, and we're waiting on a response from them.
Okay, because I mean it's
Something.
We looked at them. I mean, it's that's what they're made for, outside recreational. Actually, they're considered penal use, so they're heavy duty. But I'm surprised they did that. But yeah, the square around the backboard and the square around the chute is gone. I mean, it's just.
Okay, yeah, because it looks, I mean, they looked great when they first came out, looked really nice, and then, 6 months later, they look sometimes worse than the ones those are only 6 months old.
Yeah, I've got a staff member that's working on it.
Yeah, all right. And as far as, just a quick question, as far as the lights are concerned, if I want to go play basketball there, I just go hit the button and turn the light on, and then
It's a twist knob.
Twist
So
knob,
you
okay.
twist the knob, it'll go up to a maximum of 2 hours.
So if I go by and see the lights are on, no one's there, someone's been there.
Somebody's turned the knob, and then it automatically goes off at 10 o'clock. So no matter
matter
how
what.
much you turn that, it automatically goes off.
Does that include weekends too?
Yes. And then it's on a dusk to dawn, so if somebody turned it on in the mornings.
Is that something that's been adjusted for the daylight savings time, or is it going to be 9 o'clock right now or 11 o'clock right now?
I would assume it had been adjusted by staff, but I'd have to check on that.
Just to confirm it.
Yeah.
I mean, the slide that's there, if you want to.
It's the
Punish
slide
your
that's there is
child.
actually, we got a work order to remove it. All of the steps on the back of it, it's actually a hazard. All the welds and the metal is just completely gone on the backside, and you can't even buy a metal slide anymore. That's what I grew up on, but they actually, you can't use those anymore.
It's very old school.
And then the monkey
probably
bars
sell it for
that
an
are out
antique.
there, they're all rusted off. 3/4 of them are rusted off at the ground. So we've slated to remove what's there, which is really the monkey bar and the slide.
If anybody wants to see this one day on Port Royal, the town. Don't
When
use
you-
it on a hot day.
When you, yes, we can have a motion to move this forward. Mr. Sheba, when you look at this, can you look at possibly just some kind of unique ideas that a lot of parks don't have? Something that people would really enjoy that's not expensive, out of the box, that people might enjoy, kind of modern, I don't know, disc golf or something to that effect.
We can look at that.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we are on to agenda item number 15, okay, which is establishment of fees associated with the use of credit card to pay county taxes or fees. Anyone have any? We have a credit card payment is 1.25%. Online website, 2.25%. For debit, nothing. See, if you look at the...
I think we put in ordinance, whatever it costs us.
Right.
We create that in ordinance if we have the ability to do that. But
You
I
really
see
can't
Mr.
get
Emerson
that in
shaking
there
his
because
head.
every credit card is different. And so you just have to take an average, and what the other counties do is just try to cover their costs with, because we're also trying to cover an internet connection now that's going to, a separate internet connection is going to actually run the credit card machines to make sure we're compliant with all of the things you've got to be compliant with and keep it off of our network. And so we feel we'll be good with this. We've discussed it with the treasurer, and so, but I'm not going to tell you that there might be somebody that uses a credit card that has a slightly higher fee, but then somebody else might be using one that's slightly lower, and it's just going to average. It just goes in the bank account, and we pay bills with it and pay
That's
the credit
fine, as
card
long
company.
as that we're in the ballpark of what's going to cost us.
And once we have a history with it for a couple of years, we will adjust it, bring it back to you and say, hey, we're a little bit, a couple points off or something.
profit margin for the county.
You gonna make a motion?
If I go online and pay my taxes with my debit card, there is no charge.
Online, there's a convenience fee, and it's 2 point.
Oh, wait a minute.
Online, there's always a convenience fee.
This is credit card,
Yeah.
Not for a debit card.
Online, it's
Yeah,
a
if I go
convenience
online-
fee.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, there's a convenience fee online no matter what, because that's going through a processor that handles that online.
That is
Yeah.
But on,
But if you're in the office, and were to swipe a debit card, no charge, because there is no charge. But the online part's not swiping, that's an online processing company, and we actually pay that exact amount for on everything that runs through the website.
So you're gonna charge me the amount that you're charged, or you're gonna charge additional?
I'm charging the exact amount online, and it's 2.65, I'm not looking, 2.25%. Yeah, and that is coming from a company that handles all those processes. I know, but that's, everybody has it. I mean, everybody's using these online, you have to have this processor to be able to handle those online payments. And that's been like that for, I had it in Middlesex, I mean, it's been like that for years when we started taking online payments through the Bright system. And it's not through Bright, it's through a third party that handles that. But anyway, it'll be much cheaper in the office. If somebody wants to come in the office, then the debit card will be no fee, and then the credit card will be lower as well.
Summary, and I realize it's just a summary, it doesn't make that very clear as far as the debit card goes, because it says use the credit card payment made on the website. It doesn't say, and then the next paragraph says no charge for debit payment. I don't know how.
I'm sorry, but the online is already being done, and has been done for a number of years. We put the online in just to clear it up. I'm not sure that when that was done years ago, there was ever an ordinance that really stated it, because it was just passed through. This is what you're going to pay if you're going to use the convenience of online payments. Now that we're going to take them in the office, we really need to get it in an ordinance, and we just decided we'd put the online version in. But every transaction online is that amount, because it's being paid. It's being pulled by that company. We never even see it because the company sees it before we are remitted the money.
and that says so on our website, doesn't it? The extra charge is
Yes,
due to
yes,
the finance
yeah, due to the
processing.
processing fee. It's on the web. It's very clear. Anybody that wants to use it knows.
If you're paying a ticket online, there's a convenience fee. If you're doing anything with the state, there's a convenience fee. Yes, exactly.
So, do we need just this information only, or do we need
We need to draft an ordinance for public hearing, and we needed to be able to put the fee in. So what we're asking for you is to look at that fee for the credit card use in the office, and if you agree with that amount, it's what Beth has said she thinks we need to cover our cost. And the other was more information for we're going to put in the ordinance what the convenience fee is for online, so it'll all be right there in one spot.
I make a motion that we proceed with this as written.
Second. Motion and a second. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, we are to number 16, which is Bowling Green Convenience Site.
And Mr. Seeley, we were on that discussion earlier. There may be some way to, put some cameras that would help over there to see better as well, so that we didn't have to add employees. You'd be able to see some of the loads and some of those things as well back to the scale house.
Because-
And we actually have upgraded the internet service there with MetroCast or whoever they're going to be. So we'd probably be able to even see some of those cameras back across the network. Right, you can do that too. Yeah, you can talk to people too. Yeah, they make that.
The ring, yeah.
Stop what you're doing.
Yeah, they have a two-way camera, so you certainly can do that. But I was just thinking, instead of adding more people over there, we want to see.
Right, I don't want to add
any-
more people.
We don't either.
But I would like to delay this into the budget time, and, because it is an additional expense. I know we need to do it, we've talked about it. It's almost double what we talked about, because we talked about $70,000 last time.
Concrete's cheap. Sand and gravel's cheap. And
This-
close by.
If it was all flat concrete, it wouldn't be too bad, but since we have to actually erect a wall that's almost 8 foot tall,
I know a guy.
you know a guy? Let me know.
But I agree, we're going into budget, can we just, and we can't do it now, but I'd like to look at what we could do, because I'm really concerned about what's going to get thrown in some of these boxes. And we're going to, and our attendants are going to end up having to deal with it. And can we do anything major, if we have somebody on camera doing something they're told not to, and you have a picture of them and a license plate, is there anything that can be done? Okay.
Here's my, Mr. Thomas, what is your,
Well, this is the one that we were supposed to have started already, because it's been a year and a half or so.
Yes.
So I thought this one we should have been doing. I'd like to see us do it.
Mr. Forehand?
I would like to see us put it in the capital plan, put it out for bid soon. Or figure out a spec, what we want. We don't have to go already.
Mr. Seeley?
I've
Yeah,
had
Mr.
my
Mr. Underwood?
Yeah, I agree. I think we need to put it in the capital, part of the capital plan.
Mrs. Long?
We're getting into winter time. I'm not sure it's the best time to be building a wall anyhow, but I'm not a mason. But I do think we need to include some signage, very good signage, you know, veer this way for timber, brush, that thing, garbage, recyclables this way, and maybe just some cones would be enough to help people go the right way when they pull in there, because if not, you're going to have, it looks like a fairly wide opening there, so to direct them in different areas.
And each of the walls would have big signs telling you what would go in that particular box.
Right, but if they're not using those, you want them going the opposite direction for the regular compactors, right? And signage is not cheap.
Here's my concern, and I agree with Mr. Thomas that we've talked about this for a while, and there's not too many places where the citizens meet the county in the sense of services that we provide. This is one of those services that if people, Mr. Underwood had talked about and down Dawn, some sort of leachate or something was leaking out, which was an embarrassment. And so we fixed that right away. Health hazard, yes. This is something where citizens. I mean, if I have very rarely had to use these, but one of the few times I've had to use one of these in my life, I had to use it up in Spotsylvania, and even just with it being a 2-foot, 3-foot wall, I struggled with it. I can't imagine having to throw away what I threw away over a 6-foot wall.
7'10".
What's that?
7'10".
Yes. Come on. I mean, so I guess my concern is the quicker we get this done, the quicker we're going to serve our citizens. And this is Bowling Green's important because Bowling Green takes certain things that no one else takes. So that's why Bowling Green is, I mean, obviously, Mr. Forehand and I really want Ladysmith. That's going to be a huge priority of Mr. Forehand and I. But since Bowling Green is the convenience site that says, hey, who takes this, and you see that, I think it's something that needs to be a huge priority. And we can say it's wintertime, and I understand that. But, I'm not saying you go out and pour the concrete in January. But what I'm saying is if we have a plan ready to go, if we don't have a plan ready to go now, you're not going to be building it. You're going to be building it sometime, and you're going to be ready to go in January, and then it becomes another year. So that's my, Mr. Cully.
If we got the go-ahead tonight to do it, when do you think you could actually accomplish it, given what it takes to get things done? Logistic building, fire and rescue for one thing. I mean, just the normal workload. When will we be constructing this?
We wouldn't be doing it till late spring. I've got 2 months. I've got to get a structural engineer, get a contract with him to design the wall. Once you do that and you have that, then you can put together the rest of the specifications to bid it, advertise it, and bring it back to the board for approval. you're probably looking at a March timeframe, April to get an approval. So you're probably not constructing until late April, May.
So then if we were to delay it till the springtime,
You would be constructed to the year after next.
you wouldn't have to
probably.
be, yes, because of the fact of,
Just depending on the weather. I mean, sometimes you get a good winter and you can construct, but
Is there any reason we can't give staff the go-ahead to start, or vote to go ahead and start and make the suggested modifications or improvements here, and move forward with it, and we're going to have the budget going, right? It could still be in the capital improvement for next year. So can we merge them both together, make everybody happy?
I'm not opposed to moving forward and getting a plan, get the plans, get bid plans ready to go. Why don't we move forward to the bid plan phase and at least know and get some idea what it's going to cost and what it's going to look like? I make a motion, we move forward to get plans designed for this facility.
could we do, I mean, do we need a money amount right now? I mean, he's already, do we want to do?
I think we just need, if we get the design, that'll give us an idea of what the overall scope and the cost will be. We'll get that from the engineer, and we'll bid it out if nothing else. But I still think we're going to be a lot closer getting that done where it'll be in next year's money.
Okay, with the plans.
I mean, yeah, once we have the plans,
Okay,
I
that's what I'm
think by
saying,
the time we
let's-
actually do construction, if we're lucky, we'll be doing some construction in May or June, which by that time we'll already know we would have to put it in next year's budget anyway, so if we'll need the money one way or the other. It's so close to the end of the budget cycle.
Just out of curiosity, could you take like half of the money from the surplus and half of the money from, could you do it that way? From the capital?
Well, we got to be able to pay for the design. That would come from the fund balance, and the overall construction of the project may be able to be funded in next year's budget, because we're going to be far enough down the road to be able to do that, and it may actually start construction around that time frame anyway. I think he's being optimistic that we'll start in April or May. Sometimes things don't move quite that fast. So, but I think if we don't start now, we're looking at losing the good construction time of next summer.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we.
I already made a motion.
Oh, you did? Okay.
We have a motion.
To do the design.
We have a motion, do we have a second? A motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion?
And bring it back to the board, and
Right, it'll come back to us once they get the
you're
design.
gonna stop at design and not stop at bid?
I think we'll share where we are with the design to make sure before we go out to bid, you're in agreement that we've got a design that's the right one.
And
allocate money for the design?
I think we'll come back with a cost for that. If you authorize us to do it, we'll negotiate with our engineers the best possible price. I mean, I don't expect that to be a big, significant dollar amount.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
We are to 17, which says a proposed regional employment development subcommittee. They're looking for Mr. Wilson.
No, he's one of the people.
Yeah,
that's
he's going to be,
gonna be appointed,
right.
and a board member.
Well, his initials are in here, GW, so I figured it was Gary Wilson.
Who would like to serve on that subcommittee?
It says, and a board member that represents the county on the GWRC Board of Directors.
Or,
That narrows it down to two quick.
no.
Well,
Hold
that's
on.
what the text says.
I'm just reading. That's what it says.
What? Yeah, okay, I get what you're saying. The only problem with me is if the meetings are in the day, I can't make it. I mean, so if they have these meetings during the day, I mean, it's just not going to be possible. If they're evening meetings, I have a potential of making them, but not during the day. So, okay, that's fine.
So,
make
Mr. Chairman.
my-
So moved.
Second.
Thanks,
Aye.
guys, appreciate that.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries unanimously. That was-
Way to go.
That was great. All right, we are to number, what are we, 18? No, we 17. 17B, which was,
Interchange cleanup. Thought this was you.
The answer on the comprehensive roadside management plan.
Sir?
The update on that is as we had submitted to the board, and they'd given us approval to go ahead with all of the authorization through VDOT. We've gotten that. And in the plan we laid out during the winter months, we would go in there with the new machine that the board authorized purchase of and go in there and mulch all that. So we've got that scheduled for the January timeframe to get in there and to do the northwest quadrant and to do that this coming year.
If we were, the conversation regarding street sweeper and edging and things like that on the curbed areas, looking at exit 104, and I know this is not within your realm of responsibility, so just bear with me for a second. In the medians right now, it looks like a train wreck. There's cones, debris, grass growing. If someone was coming to here during the daytime at that exit, it would easily give them the impression that this is an unkept area. And that is the impression that I'm trying to combat. The machine doing that's part of this, because that'll let more light through. It'll beautify it. But I think we need to look at expanding, whether through a contractor, a landscaping company, staff on overtime, whatever the situation. We need to address the aesthetics of the population that comes off these exits. I'm not exactly sure the best way to do that. I'll kind of defer to your judgment, but that's the next step in looking at this.
But what is VDOT's responsibility for cleaning some of that up? Because they're supposed to be the maintainers of the road and the right-of-ways. And yeah, there's abandoned cones there. There's all kinds of stuff. So, are they going? I mean, are they going to do anything, or do one of us need to call them?
Typically, VDOT does a trash pickup twice a year when they're doing their grass cutting. Currently, county staff has picked up the interchange from Route 1 to Belmont 3 times. We just completed our last pickup, 56 bags on 1026. We spent just about, I think it was 39 man-hours of picking up trash there at the end of October. So that's now our third time picking up trash in that area. VDOT's done it twice, so it's been picked up 5 times this previous year. And again, 1026 was our day. And it surprised us as much as we got.
That speaks volumes for what's there.
Yeah, it does.
So I don't know when your time frame was when you saw that. I know we didn't pick up road cones if they were there, but we would have picked up all the trash.
Well, it was more the larger debris that, and it was by Sunday.
I think I think it was 5 tires that we ended up getting up during that time, which you would think in that area you wouldn't have tires just laying in the median and stuff.
One would think. Anyway, that's where my head is, and that's where I'm looking. If it's something we got to contract out, then so be it. But I would like to just see what the number is to.
I'll work back with the jail again and see if we can set something up on a monthly basis that they come in and clean that area and get a cost estimate that I can bring to the board. So that way we can use the inmates to do that. It should be a minimal cost, but last time we talked to them, they said they were too busy, with doing all the work for the state in Hanover. But maybe we can revisit with them again.
I'll just take a look at it, see what options are.
Yes, sir.
Maybe spraying in the springtime when things are growing, because there is a lot of dead vegetation there now, and we're working on something as a grassroots effort for exit 110 right now. But fewer people live down near 104, so they're less interested in picking that up. So, okay.
And just as a quick update, if you don't mind, is in Ladysmith Road, we've actually been doing really good there with the YMCA. They have been doing a tremendous job of picking up trash. Pretty much, they've been doing it one month, we've done it the next month, and we've been going back and forth. And then I know Mr. Black's been coordinating with Lake Landor and the Y trying to do theirs at the same time. So it's been a great effort on that part. So I think Ladysmith is looking better as well. So it's quite a bit of trash. I don't have that number off the top of my head. I just know we did the other one recently. But.
And a few weeks after Thanksgiving, it'll look even better after what we're doing too.
The grassroots. I did want to point out the fact that yes, between Mr. Whiteman's guess, the Ruritan Club out there, and Lake Landor, and YMCA. It was 96 Sparta Road and Ladysmith Road from basically the interstate to Lake Landor and a little bit beyond to the winery. And then we missed a section there too, 96 bags of trash. 96 bags of trash. And that's just one small section of Caroline County. So 96 bags of trash. Mr. Whiteman had 40, we had 36, and the YMCA had 22. So, I mean, that's it's kind of embarrassing.
Kind of putting together a program now. It's called Cash for Trash, and working on a program kind of modeling off what Spotsylvania does. But essentially, you would have a pot of money, an application process, and that you would do nonprofit organizations that the county can donate to, but really focus on the school programs as far as like your band and your wrestling and your football team. But they could come in and say, we've got X amount of people that are going to come in, they're going to clean up this amount of trash, and for every bag of trash, you give them $5. You do a competition, you set it for a 2-month time period, and whoever can pick up the most trash, you can give them an extra $300 for first place, second place, $200, $100. But it's a good way. $5 for a bag. You got to take a picture. You set up road cones. You give them the video to watch. So I'm working on that, trying to get that together, and hoping to put something in the budget and bring back as a full presentation to the board.
Right. Just make sure it's $5 a full bag.
Full bag, yeah. You got to provide a picture showing what it is.
The Sparta or Ruritans, they go out there and they get like 3 pieces of trash, and then, I mean, it's... I'll get a phone call tomorrow, don't worry. So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I am.
We need to adjourn to the 5th of December recess.
All right, are there any informational
That's
calendar
6:00,
items?
you're right. Well, we could adjourn, but that wouldn't be good. Continue the meeting.
I will be on vacation. I will be on vacation tomorrow. Mr. Parton will be available, and I will be available by computer and cell phone.
Okay.
And then we have, bring your legislator to school day on the 28th. Mr. Parton and Mr. Finney will be going representing staff, but any board members that get a chance to.
That way you walk up.
Don't forget, we have a half a day off next Wednesday. County staff, the governor gave off, and then obviously Thanksgiving Thursday and Friday are state holidays. Now we have the meeting on the 5th at 6 o'clock. Port Royal tree lighting on the 8th at 5:30. Our next regular scheduled meeting is on the 12th, but we have a 4 p.m. work session with the school board to start initial conversations about their budget request. On the 13th at noon, an employee holiday luncheon. We confirmed the location. We anticipate in Bowling Green Town Hall. I had emailed the town manager, because he was new, hey, we've always done this, but I really haven't heard anything back. So anyway, we'll confirm that. Bowling Green Christmas Parade on the 16th at 5 p.m. And then offices close on the 22nd at noon for Christmas, and then are closed obviously on Christmas Day and the 26th. So that's December and the end of November.
Okay.
These numbers for the schools, they're not the latest actual numbers, or are they the final numbers? We're only like 200,000. We're only 100,000 over budget. That's both of them together.
In
4,
the
5,
information,
25.
capital projects update, can you explain the school numbers construction?
95 and 18, 103. 103 on based on these. Are we? It says we're 103 over based on these numbers.
It's coming.
Which I thought was in line with what they were saying.
We had to get you up here one more time, Fran.
If y'all remember, we broke it down this way. Your bond is 25 million.
Right.
It's not broken down.
Yeah, I added them together, so it wasn't broken down when I added them together.
Right, but we're also now spending some insurance funds that the board has approved, and I haven't adjusted the budget up for the insurance funds.
Okay. So are these the last final numbers?
No.
There's more numbers to be had.
Yes.
Thank you. I win the prize because I said I could get you up here before the meeting. So
You did. You did say that.
have a nice day.
Evening.
All right. Closing board comments.
None?
Mr. Forehand?
Mr. Keller, are we still on track for the water extraction permit for this fiscal year?
That's still moving forward. Mr. Shea will explain in more detail with the meetings and VMRC and the various things that they're working on, and then our resolution we're working with King George.
We currently have had several meetings with the state agencies individually. I've got another one set up for the week after Thanksgiving, which will be our final meeting with all the state agencies that are involved. Just trying to make sure that we understand exactly what they're looking for. We've got a lot of good information, and right now it appears that we might not have to do the $1 million, $800 million, or $800,000 up to $1 million hydraulic water study. Looks like we've got enough data and enough modeling information that we can put together to not have to do that, which is great. So we still got to get that. We do have 2 alternative sites we've kind of looked at, a little bit deeper water, protected lands around there. So we've looked at 2 alternative sites that might be better, gets rid of some of our water quality issues. And we have met several times with an adjacent locality about possibly them partnering with us to give us better opportunity to be able to get an application. So.
I did field a couple of questions regarding our long-term water solutions meeting on Tuesday night, so perhaps it was because I primed them last year, no pun intended. But anyway, it is a topic.
It is, and it's it's one of the top 5 things I think the board's going to have to address, economic development wise. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Shebel, are those 2 sites the same 2 we discussed?
Yes, ma'am.
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Mrs. On.
Just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
And I have none as well. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
No, to recess.
Whoa, okay, all right.
Recess to the 5th of December,
motion to-
the EOC at 6 o'clock.
Motion to recess.
EOC,
Yeah,
6 o'clock.
I have a motion?
Motion.
Second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Have a good night, everyone.